All right, guys. Lots and lots to unpack. We will get right to the chat quickly here. I will not espouse for a long period of time. I think you all saw the same game that I probably saw. I don't think there's going to be a lot of disagreement in that. Of course, in this game right from the start, our Seahawks just got steamrolled, stampeded, ran over right from the jump. Certainly there were remnants of those old 10 a.m. start times here where you remember about the teams coming out and seemingly appearing to sleepwalk. But I would offer that this is much more beyond that. This is, in a season of bad defensive performances, this was perhaps the worst. And I know it wasn't the worst from yardage and all that other stuff, but at least in those other games, you're getting a couple of turnovers, flipping the field a few times. Right from the start of this game to nearly right near the end, you just couldn't get any stops. You were forced again back into trying to blitz, which is just not in my opinion. At the end of the day, on a good NFL team, it's just you're not going to stop them. You're not going to stop a good NFL team that can beat your blitzes because your scheme is not built to be blitz heavy. It's trying to operate outside of what is its normal purpose, how it normally wants to operate. And now you're seeing the other side of that. Yes, you generate some pressure, you get some sacks. But the other side of that is now there's a lot of green grass, as Brock Heward put it on the telecast, to go out there and attack play in and play out. We've got some players we can break down who aren't playing up to the level they should be playing as well. But this is a bad loss. This is what a lot of our fears coming into play have shown themselves to be. What's up? Pull the shot, shooter, Sean Wright, hello. Emma Brown, let Bobby call the D and Russ call the offensive line. You could. There was definitely some issues for me in this game as far as the offensive play calling. Schottenheimer, and we can put probably Russell in this as well, and the offensive line in it as well. I think it's a coordinated team effort here, are struggling right now in the blitz pickup game. There's no doubt about that. And I'm going to go through these comments quick here to try to get caught up fast so that I don't get too far behind early on. So if I miss a question or if you guys pump it in there and I'm out, just put it back in the chat and I'll hit it back again. So please bear with me on that. Ian Williams, I think we had a chance to win, but too many mistakes. I agree. Sethi, so pissed by this defense. I am too. This was infuriating to watch. There's times watching this game right now, and especially watching the defense play, where I'm pacing, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. I can't believe how much they just easily give up. They make it so easy on teams. You're not even challenging Allen at any time, and then they're just, okay, we'll send full house blitzes. Since our soft blitzes aren't getting it, we'll send everybody, casino blitzes. And then he beats that too. I don't know what the solution is at this point in time. That time has passed. The trade deadline's gone. Certainly Carlos Dunlap helped, but I think as Cameron Hughes says, Norton may not be the problem. That may be back again to this scheme has seen its day. That is a potential too. I mean, at what point or another, how much talent do you start to assemble on that side of the football before you go, maybe it's the scheme. There's a lot of talented players here. We should be maybe getting more out of it. Derek Lightning fan says, so disappointed in Dunbar. I thought our pass rush did enough to win. Offense was pretty bad in the turnover department too. Yeah, the corner play has been right behind the defensive line play this season, is being right lockstep in how poor they're playing and how bad they're playing. And today they were probably even a little worse than what you were looking at the defensive line, though Flowers flashed a little bit today. Dunbar, I think, is playing on a bum knee, Derek. You're without Shaquille Griffin. You don't have any backups. I think they were forced to really try to push Quentin out there and get him to play. I really do. I think they got kind of stuck into that mode where I don't think he's operating on full wheels. Fire Norton, says Ryan Dallas. Fire Norton says Ahmad Ragad. And sorry, Ahmad, I didn't get a chance to make you a mod, but I will here at some point. Nathaniel Parks, overall bad performance today. Yeah, just a bad performance. I think the offense, I can't ding as much on the offense on this because it was pretty obvious right from the start of this game that they were going to have to score on every single possession, that they had no room for error. That's going to lead your offense and especially your quarterback to press, to do things that are outside of what they should be doing and letting the game kind of come to them a little bit. And I thought Russ got caught up into that a little bit. Yeah, it's not good to throw the interceptions, but at the same point in time, one happens on fourth down where he's forcing it because they're having to go for it on fourth down because they can't take a field goal early on because they see the Bills are lapping them. It starts to affect the other parts of this team, that bad defense. Gino Boo says, why does Ken Norton fully blitz on 3rd and long when he knows there's a screen coming? I don't think that he had any anticipation of the screen game in this game. I think those screens were one offensive coordinator being much smarter than the opposition's defensive coordinator. And him dialing it up at that point was showing his tendency, was showing what he was doing through most of that game as they were realizing they had to generate pressure and it was all-out blitz every play. That's how you beat an all-out blitz. A lot of what I'd like to also see Seattle do that they don't do as well. We didn't see a blitz until far into the end of the game when they finally threw it to Travis Homer, who took the play, I think, for 20 yards. But outside of a couple bubble screens, I'm talking traditional running back, screen plays where they get out there and they roll. You just don't see a ton of it. And I don't know why they don't roll it on ours. And when we got attacked by it, you're not surprised. This is the problem with being one of these full house blitzing teams. This is one of the reasons that Carroll in the first place leans towards being a 4-3 under team that plays a lot of zone defense. He wants to have guys in the back end to protect against the big plays, but that becomes really hard when you're sending all of those guys up and you're having them attack going downhill after the quarterback. Booster, Ken Norton needs to go? Yes, he does, probably. I don't know what he's going to need to. I don't know how he keeps his job after this season, whether it is his fault or not. Whether it's his fault or not, somebody's going to have to get the axe. And it doesn't look like it's Carroll after his third, getting his extension locked in, announced this week, I think literally today. Helmy Sethi says, why are we blitzing on literally every down? Because you can't generate any pass rush with your front four. Dunlap did a little bit, but other than him, nobody else is getting any pressure. And Rasheem Green was probably really rusty coming back in his first game, but outside of a couple of high-effort plays, didn't really show me much. Randall McDaniel says, bright side, 7 sacks. They did, but what was the price, Randall? What was the price? Pull the shooter. How is it? Pull the shooter says, how is it Pete's scheme? It's Pete's scheme by just being what. It's his. This is his 4-3 under. This is what he rolled. You have to expand on that one. I don't know what you meant on that one. Flags Sabbath. What's up, Joey? Michael, how you doing? He says, sign Vic Beasley. Yeah, you might have to be kicking those tires a lot harder right now with Vic. Whether you have questions about his effort or where he's at right now or not. As I've said after the Carlos Dunlap deal, and when I said before the Dunlap deal, you need another pass rusher like Dunlap in addition to him. Not just him, in addition to him. Flags out of the 7 sacks, and they were shellacking us. It isn't right. Well, this is what happens with heavy blitzing teams. You're going to get some sacks. You're going to get some flashy plays. You're going to give up more plays over the top. You're going to see more yak yardage because there's less guys to get in around the ball carrier and wrap up. There's less hands to be in passing lanes. So when you look at the statistics in this game, you didn't have one pass defensed the whole football game. Why is that? Because you're blitzing, because you don't have hands in football lane. You don't have hands in passing lanes. And yes, your corners didn't play good as well in addition to that, but that is the fallout of that. It's sexy. It's like the home run, It's sexy getting those blitzes in and making those quarterbacks scared and having those big hits on the quarterback. But you also get a lot of strikeouts, right? Going for that home run ball all the time, you're also going to get a lot of strikeouts, and that's what we saw today. It was an 18K, 20K game against us today by the opposition's starting pitcher. Emmett Brown says, why extend Pete now? At least wait to see if he changes in the playoffs or keeps playing Pete ball. Early holes with comeback attempts. I'm making a very wide guess here, Emmett, because I don't know the situation intimately, and all I can do is read into what I've read on the peripherals of this. It would appear to me that after Paul Allen's passing, that Jody Allen, his sister, who's taken over control now, is not as intricately laced into the organization. She's not really as much into football. It's not her thing. While at the same time, she seems to be very respectful of what was one of her brother's favorite things. So being that Carroll is her brother's hire, one of his last hires, I think she's going to be hesitant to let him go and sort of let him call his own shot to leave out of town. I know we're all hungry for another title and all that, but she may not look at it through that same lens. So that would be my guess, is that she's perfectly happy keeping I'm looking for the right word here, but, a respectful hire of her brother had put into place. And that's a guess. Gino Bruce says the offense needs more screens. I'm glad I'm not the only one, man. I'm not the only one on this one, you guys. Glad to hear it, because I'm sitting there watching them going, man, they have no answers for this screen game. They'll try a slant here, or they'll try to do a little crosser, and sometimes Russ is getting it, but sometimes he'll just hold that ball for too long, and this is where you run a few of those screen games to just make them a little hesitant to come upfield. B-Bros says, positive side of the game is we got 7 sacks. Dunlap looks like he's going to be great for us, and he really frees Reed up. Also, Russ got hit about 100 times, and he didn't get injured. That we know of. Russ is tough enough to get injured and still fight through it and play. I'm not going to be as much where you guys might be on these sacks. Again, for me, sack number is not really an indicative stat in itself to look at and hang your hat on. Stopping the run, yes, you could do that with that. You could still say, well, at least we can still stop the run. That's absolutely for certain. But the sacks thing is a little more of a misnomer. You've got to look more into some of the finer stuff. What was your pressure rate? How were you getting those sacks? What was the downside of those sacks, i.e. allowing Josh Allen to throw for nearly 400 yards? Derek, the Seahawks right side, everyone. Arizona's losing. I hope we're going to need them. We're going to need some teams in our division, it looks like, to lose a little bit because we need a little more room for error. 12-Man Nation says, fire Norton and bench Russell when there was pressure. So just save him a little bit, 12-Man Nation? I get where you're coming from. It gets scary when it starts looking like that and they just don't have any answer for where the pressure is coming from. And this is why you don't ever want to get to the place where some of the let Russ cook crowd was at, where they were saying, oh, let him throw in the high volume attack 40, 45 times a game. I always mention this was the nuanced place that I wanted Seattle to be, where normally in the previous few seasons, you've ran approximately 53% of the time, passed it 47% of the time. I always ask that they just kind of flip that around. Throw 53, run 47. I thought you could still be really effective that way, give Russell a few extra attempts, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 attempts more a game, but not into the 40 status, 41, 42, because he will take a little bit more of a beating in that standpoint. You've not built an offensive line here that is pass protect heavy. They're more run block centric if you have to tilt or point away on them. Yeah, I don't think you can fire Norton right now at this point in midseason. I just don't. Unless the only other aspect of the potential of that would be that you could bring Quinn in. If you could bring Quinn in, then they could slide him in. But I don't think it's any real likely chance of that happening. So I know you folks are on this train. I get where you're on that train. I'm not going to knock you for, but unfortunately, you're just not gonna see it. Emmett Brown says Pete said he didn't anticipate them not trying to run. Are you effing kidding me? I agree. They were out. This is another one of those games we see this year, and it's happened a couple times here. We've gotten away with it because we've done some magical things at the end. Like the Vikings game, I would say is a game we got out-coached. This is a game that I would say we were, again, out-coached on both sides of the ball. Yeah, you had some effective plays offensively, but some of it was broken plays. Some of it was just the sheer Russell, like the rollout to David Moore. But there wasn't a lot of easy completions put into the framework of the game plan. And from the defensive side of the ball, their game plans didn't seem to understand how the Bills were going to go after them. And props to the Bills for fully buying in to just being willing to just pass the ball. They didn't try to go, well, now we've got to run a little bit at least, right? We got to run a little. No, they just said, we'll just keep on throwing it. You guys can't do anything about this. So props to them. And again, Carroll, sometimes with the way he looks at stuff and the way they plan stuff ahead, and this is especially disconcerting as we're talking about his extension, he's getting that place where you start to wonder, is he just, has his fastball lost just a little bit too much juice at times, especially in the game plan stuff, where schematically it's just getting shredded. It's just shredded. His little fabled defense right now is just in tatters. Flag Sabbath says, what's up with Wilson? I didn't get to watch the game. Was he spooked out there like the Cardinal game? No, I think with Wilson, I'm not going to let him completely off the hook in this game and say he played a fantastic game. He missed some throws, especially early on. And he still, this year at times, and it's growing kind of to be more and more of a problem, I think calling the protections right, recognizing where the blitzes are coming from, I don't think it's ever been a monstrous strength of Russell's. In fact, early on in his career, I would say it was a little bit of a weakness. He's grown to make it better over time, but it's one that's just a little bit as the year's gone on a bit, is backslid, where he just doesn't see the pressure and where it's coming from. And maybe that's somebody messing up on their protections, but he's the guy who's in charge of calling the protections there. So then he needs to get stuff more clearly in line with where those guys need to be blocking at that point. Take more time. Come out of the huddle a little more early at that point so he can set it up and really find where these blitzes are coming from. But no, I don't think he played too spooked. I mean, on the fourth, there was a fourth down interception flag where it's fourth down. They're going for it. I mean, what's the difference? You could think, okay, we'll give him the ball at the 1 yard line, but he's trying to just make a play. He's trying to do something. I can't blame him on that throw. Ahmad, I will try to make you a moderator, man. Let me do it after time's been hard as far as just shrunk up. But I will try to remember to get back in there. Ewan Tyrell, hey, man, that was pathetic. So many poor performances. And what about Norton? How can he survive this? He'll survive through the end of the year because Carroll will put it on his own shoulders and say this is much about me as it is Ken, if not more so. So we'll see where that goes. Sushi Rice, time to panic. Not completely panic, but definitely be disconcerted because this is a a thing that stood on the horizon from my standpoint going back to last year. Got to fix the pass rush. That's going to be the downfall of this defense. And now we're starting to see other problems prop up, like the defensive back position, where the cornerbacks are just not playing very good right now. They're not playing very good right now at all. So, yeah, it's not panic mode, but it's disconcerting mode, just below panic mode. It's like that old terror chart where the color-coded chart. We're not up to the orange status yet, but we're now into the yellow, so we got to be a little worried. Rampansy, we haven't beaten a 500 team. Yeah, but I mean, it's also we've played a few 500 teams, right? So the Vikings are going to be a 500 team. The Dolphins are probably going to be a 500 team. But I get where you're coming from. We haven't beaten a necessarily quality opponent as of yet. It's a valid thing to say. Nathaniel Parks, the defense got pressure and the offense still put up 34 points and it still looked bad. Just were outplayed. Very simple. Yeah, some of that is that, Nathaniel. I think they started out the game not wanting to necessarily blitz as much. So they dropped back into some of those zone coverage stuff that we've seen early on. Bills went right through that, okay? So then they went, dear God, we still can't get any pressure with our front four, even with Carlos Dunlap here. We've got to still be bringing the house here. So they started from like the, midway through the first quarter up until probably the fourth quarter, they're bringing the house on every other snap. And so then you're getting a lot of pressure because if you look at where their blitz rate is coming out of this game, they'll blitz this week more than any other team in the NFL. I guarantee it. And it will be by a wide margin. So you would expect to see some within blitzing that much. You will expect to see those pure raw sack numbers go up or the pure raw pressure numbers go up by the sheer volume of the amount of times you're getting a chance to pass rush. Doesn't mean it's effective. Doesn't mean it's efficient. Those are the two things I come back to. So that's more than I think just it being outplayed, Nathaniel, on that. I think we were outplayed. I will give you that. But I think that the defense... that defensive problem that sits there and just that monkey on our back right now just continues to persist. PvP list maker, our defense is so bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad right now. We stopped the run. Najee Eastwick, need to run the ball, need balance. Feels like Russ needs to score every drive. He certainly did. That's why he was pressing. 12th man nation with Norton still in. Don't be surprised if we lose to the Jets. No, we're not losing the Jets. 12th man nation. We showed anything we can beat on the weaklings in the NFL. That is one thing I can at least reasonably say with confidence. Insanity Mixes, please tell me what our defense needs to do. When we get Snacks back this week. I don't know what Snacks' impact is really going to be on this defense right now. If I remember correctly, looking at the stats after this game, the Bills averaged 1.8 yards per carry. Yeah, I understand they didn't run very often, but when they did, they didn't get very many yards. So Snacks Harrison's a one-tech mountain of a man that you can't move off the ball. What is his impact going to do for the pass rush? Hard for me to say it's going to be very impactful at this point. It's probably part of the reason why they've not been in as much a rush to run him back. Running game's not a problem. Oh, Craig Fawcett. There we go. Niners were 500 when we played them. There we go. Valid. Facts. Craig Fawcett spitting facts. Ian Mills. The defense had 7 sacks, but we were blitzing and it really cost us. Yep. That's my thing on it. Seahawks, NHL. Teams know how to blitz to stop our offense. Our defense is a lost cause. Players aren't playing well, and Norton is just awful. Solid points all around, Seahawks H&L. Solid points all around. That's been the recipe now. It's going back to last year with Russel and the boys. You drop into zones and stuff, he'll probably get you one way or another. But if you do bring pressure and you allow those guys to be working together in the pressure, not just sending guys to send them for the sake of sending them, as we see sometimes with our defense, but actually having a plan of attack and going about how they're going to contain Russell in the pocket while also attacking him in the blitz game. You saw it today, and it's one reason that we can't become so completely one-dimensional as we did today. We've got to balance up that running game. We certainly missed Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde in this game, though I think Dallas ran really well early on. You had to just go away from it partly because you got down by so many points. But you've got to maintain that balance, I think, to keep that pass rush a little bit honest, especially if you're not going to attack with a screen game. Pox, the only good part of the game was our pass rush. It was okay. It was nice. It was all right. Randall says, I think you were right. The East Coast game caught up to us. Dunbar is horrible. Yeah, and I know younger fans aren't as much aware. You guys get to just sit here and and shine in this 10-0 start that we've had over the last 10 a.m. start times over on the East Coast. We've been 10-0 going into this game, so I guess 10 is a nice round number to have it end on. But prior to this, going back for years, going back to the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, even the Mike Holmgren teams that were Super Bowl contenders year in and year out, you still saw your team go into the game through the first, sometimes 2 quarters where they're just sleepwalking. They're not into it. They don't see it. There's no energy. There's no juice. And if you look into some of the nerdy stuff on this, not that I want to give this the excuse to this game because this is beyond this, but some of the nerdy stuff on this is there's been scientific studies showing where body is at peak performance when it's going to do what it can do at a maximum level. And it's shown to be somewhere, I think, between like 12 and 3 o'clock body clock time. And then it gets a little bit less as you go through. But the problem with that is that when you're on 7 o'clock body clock time, which is what the Seahawks were on, essentially by their own clock, you're not at peak performance. And you can drink all the coffee you want, all the IV drips you want, do all that jumping jacks you want. You just can't get that energy up to sometimes the level you want. It was a little bit of that today. A little bit, but not all the way. I'm not putting all the blame on that, but some of it was in there. Ryan Dallas says, I think getting Carson and high back will help our offense's diversity. Yeah, I think so too. Absolutely. Ahmad Ragad, you should be watching the Dolphins game and rooting for them. I am. I'm rooting in spirit, but I want to talk to you guys about this game because I think we got to hash out some of the stuff that happened this game and try to look forward to understanding, where we put this game in perspective to not just the season and the now and what it means for when we come to playoff time, what we're seeing right now. User Hitstick, how you doing? Sean Wright, the 1 week Trey Flowers actually doesn't play like a liability. Dunbar turns into a traffic cone. I understand he's injured, but it's like he put no effort into coverage. Yeah, it looks like he just can't change on direction on his knee right now to me, Sean. And this is another one of those guesses. You're trying to do some of the math where he's been sort of in and out of the lineup. They've mentioned this knee. These knees can kind of just linger if you don't just give it the rest it needs to get, or if he needs to have actual surgery on the knee, which is probably what's likely here, is that to get the true recovery, it's going to probably take some kind of surgery. But he definitely had his worst game of the year, and he hasn't played fantastic this year. He's had a couple moments he's flashed. He's jumped on some balls, but today he looked completely lost. We need Shaquille Griffin back. We're paper thin at the cornerback position right now. Paper thin. But I guess if there is one thing we could take, which is a nice thing, which is an optimistic aspect from this game, I thought Trey Flowers did play really good this game. I thought he played really pretty solidly. I didn't think he was the problem in coverage. They just picked on Dunbar and the underneath routes a bunch. B-Russ says it's the scheme, man. It's the scheme, man. Sad thing is they won't change it this year. They're going to waste another year of Russel and Bobby's career. Very well could. Very well could. 12-Man Nation says Russ is not the MVP. Not with the way he's played the last couple weeks. He's had too many games now where he's stacking up games of whether he's pressing or not, or whatever the reason being, it's going to cost him when it comes to voting time. And it's backsliding. This is a little bit of shades of last year where he started out so hot and then started to come down to earth. The weird part about this year, though, as opposed to last year, you could point to some of the injury situation and at least hang your hat on that. But this year you go, well, they're relatively healthy on the offensive line and with your skill position players. You don't have as much of a reason other than, again, they just don't have an answer right now in the blitz game. They should be running 3 of those running back screens a game, minimum, just to keep the defenses honest, especially when they see the defenses run with those casino blitz full stacked deck alignments on the formation. Derek, the Seahawks fan, says we needed Shaq. We needed our running backs. Bright side is Arizona's losing, man, and we can still control our own destiny starting next week. That is a bright side. Hopefully they lose. Emmett Brown, Russ should get the MVP just for having to play for Pete. God, I hate that extension. Yeah, I'm not super enthused by it either at this point, Emmett, and not just because of today. Space, hey, D-Boy, 12th Man Nation, Bobby is old and he is slow, says 12th Man Nation. He's certainly not as once as the maybe rangy, guy sideline to sideline linebacker he once was. He's probably more of a between the hash marks type of middle linebacker in there. It's maybe a fair point, and maybe coverage has never been his number one game. He's more of a run stuffer, and now he's being asked to do a little more coverage, and it's not necessarily his MO. Pox, David Browns hope this team drafts a better player than Stephon Gilmore on a second round 2021. I was under the impression, David, that the Patriots were asking for a first round pick for Stephon Gilmore at the trade deadline. I could be off on that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that's what it was going to take, and you don't have a first-round pick to offer unless you're going to offer next year's first-round pick. Mindy V, that was a bad game, says Mindy. Yeah, Mindy, it was kind of rough. Kind of tough. That was a tough one. That was a tough watch this year. That was a real tough watch. Flag Sabbath says, it seems like Dunbar was a great acquisition. Addition and acquisition. Yes, he was. He'll be a great Leo N for us. Looks like he has some gas in the tank. He provided a couple pressures in this game. He's got that Calais Campbell style of locking out that tackle and then just walking him back, collapsing the pocket, which I thought worked out really well and will help in the blitz game as well because it's less reliant on the player having to dip and rip around his guy to get more space to get around the tackle who's trying to block him. Maybe some of that was some of the benefit of that with some of our success today in the blitz game. But he's a guy who we can feel pretty good about coming out of this game. 12th Man Nation says KJ looks better than Bobby. Yeah, maybe. There's times where KJ's had moments in this game too where he didn't look necessarily great. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with evaluating the linebacker play right now because I don't. What can I pull away from this being a scheme, and what can I pull this into being potentially older, slower linebackers? I wish I had a better answer for you guys at this point as far as certainty goes on that, but I'm still sort of thinking about it. Seahawks H&L says Russell's off the MVP, probably third in line now. Yeah, probably. FaZe Grandma, we need a no line. I thought our O-line's okay. We just need to be better in our pass protection, and we need to be better in working more on preparing for the blitzes. Teams are going to blitz the hell out of us moving forward. They need to have a plan of attack and able to do things when, it's going to have a free rusher and able to do something to attack that free rusher. And right now they don't. They just don't right now. Craig Fawcett, thank you for the $10 donation. I salute you, sir, and do appreciate it. He says we have some positive. He says we have some positives. I want to get this up here. Sorry. We have some positives. Every loss is a learning experience. Our D-line got some help with Dunlap. Bill showed us exactly where our weakness was. It's a good point, Craig, and thank you again for that $10 donation. I would say again, too, this is not a game where you necessarily looked at the start of in the offseason and said, this is a game we're going to win. We got this. We'll be in Buffalo at 10 a.m. against a Buffalo team last year that started out, as they said on the telecast, I think 6-2, and then sort of trailed away and fell off a little bit. But they certainly showed enough signs for you last year for you to go, okay, that's going to be probably a pretty tough game for us to pull off and win. That might be an L. And in fact, I had it as an L going through the offseason and then talked myself into saying this was going to be a win this week because you guys got me so hyped up for this game. But at the end of the day, it was probably going to be an L and be a tough one. You don't want to lose in this fashion. That's the tough part about losing like this, where you just defensively don't seem to show up or have much there. And Russell, again, continues to kind of backslide a little bit. But you got more games at home. We're working through the tough part of our schedule. It's going to get easier on the back half. I'm not as scared of Jets. I'm not as scared of the Giants. I'm not as scared of Washington. I'm just not. We just got to take care of business within our division. That's the place we got to handle things right now. Because right now you're going to be on track, in my opinion, to lose one game outside of your division. Business needs to be handled from within. Jaden says 10-6. Jaden, brutal, my guy. Brutal, 10-6. B-Russ, anybody else see Dunbar's body language? Dude always looking like he's bored or just walking around. I'll take flowers any day just because of his effort. Yeah, body language thing's never been big with Dunbar since he arrived. We saw that in training camp. D-Mac was actually one of the first people to point that out to me, B-Russ. Just like, man, his body language just isn't good. He doesn't look like his head's in it. Maybe this offseason got to him with some of the shenanigans he got up to or did not get up to or allegedly got up to. Allegedly, Quentin. I said allegedly. And so, yeah, not looking good. That acquisition has unfortunately not worked out well for the Seahawks. He has had flashes, but it just hasn't been there. And it looks like that knee is going to continue to hold on and be a problem. Jonathan Salazar, we have to admit something. We might not be as good as we thought. Russ is kind of starting to come back to earth on his play, and our defense sucks. Our schedule has helped our record. It's a decent point, Jonathan. I don't know if I'm fully in agreement with it, but I don't know if I can debunk or say you're wrong either. I mean, it's one of those things where it's maybe my optimistic soul at play here, but I do think that you still have a quarterback who's not going to play like that every week, like he played today, where he missed a few throws. I think he still is in a place of playing really good football. And he still has a good health on that offensive side of the ball. So he's in a position to be able to do some things with that. But the defense on pace to give up more yardage in the air than anybody else in NFL history, and now you're in week 9 or something like that. So it's pretty far along the pathway to keep giving this much yardage up in the air, and they don't have any answers. You've tried to give up 2 first-round picks to bring a guy like Adams in, and he's getting pressure, and it's not helping. You get a guy like Carlos Dunlap in, and he's getting pressure, and it isn't helping. Maybe there's not an answer to be had here. Certainly if you lose another cornerback, you're going to be grabbing guys off the street here real soon. You're going to have Eli Apple over there playing corner for you real fast. Joe Lee, glad our D got embarrassed today. I hope it forces them to make some major changes. I would love to believe that as well, Joe. I had hoped that was going to happen right at the trade deadline, where they realized that they got to go get another guy in here. You got to go do something else. They're just standing pat and worrying about the fact you only have a first and a third, and when we gave up a 7th for Carlos, and man, we're going to be down to no draft picks. This was the year you had to just throw that by the wayside and go for it, in my opinion. They chose not to. They chose to play a little bit safer. And would one more move have made a difference today? I don't know. Maybe not. But I don't know what they can do differently. They've thrown the kitchen sink right now at the opposition, and the opposition's had an answer for it every single time. I don't know if there's another wrinkle or change to be made outside of them doing some schematically wild things. Like, they even tried today 3 safety look and Neal out there covering. They've done, to my eyes, they've tried everything. Maybe a 3-4 defense at this point. If you're going to be this blitz heavy, take the fourth man down, go 3. Snacks Harrison is your nose. He's big enough. You stick guys like LJ and Rasheem out as your defensive ends. They're not getting pressure anyway, and usually ask those defensive ends just hold up. That'd be there's my answer for you guys. There's my inventive fix. Jonathan says, if you see our record, the games we lost against, the only 2 teams that are playing good we've won barely against trash teams. Yeah, let's see where the strength of schedule is at, Jonathan, when the end of the season comes down. Because there is teams like Miami and Vikings that we played that are playing better. But it's also as well valid to say we haven't played against tough competition. We haven't played against a true world beater opponent yet that's going to be in the playoffs. How about we say it like that? We haven't beaten a playoff team yet. Valid thing to say. Does that mean we're exposed because 2 teams that are going to go to the playoffs have beat us in 2 games we played against them on the road? I don't know if I'm as quick to jump into that marker of things. Again, I think this is disconcerting, but I don't think we can go full on into the abyss of this team is back into the 9-7, 10-6 range of things. There is room for optimism here. I promise you, folks. Seahawks Nation says, even though we got more sacks, Allen looked like he had all the time in the world behind the O-line. He did. Nathaniel Parks, Jamal Adams, and Dunlap combined for 2.5 sacks of our 7 sacks. I think they had more than that, Nathaniel. Dunlap had 1, and I think Jamal had 2, I thought. Or maybe you're right. No, you're right. They did. Both look pretty good. Jamal is to me growing a little bit worrisome in his coverage. I thought he had been sold on being a little bit better in zone than he's shown himself out to be so far. So I'm a little worried with him on that. Sean Wright says, I feel like next week Pete and Norton will adjust and overcommit to the pass, and McVay is going to scheme a lot of runs. I could see it doing it. That'd be tough to watch, but I could see that going down like that. I could. It's going to be hard for McVay not to come into this game seeing all these holes in that secondary and the big shots he's going to be able to hit. I think he's going to be real enticed to throw a lot, just like the offensive coordinator from the Bills was today. Why shouldn't he? We're not going to stop it. We're not going to get pressure. And if we do get pressure from time to time, you're going to hit a couple of hole shots in there. You're going to get a couple of big plays after the catch. Helmy Sethi says, do you think Carroll is really going to change something schematically after the season? The 4-3 cover 3 scheme is so deep in his DNA, right? It is, and it makes me hesitant to believe that he can really ever change it. It's been successful for him for so long. And because he's never really had that 3-13, 2-14 season, he's always hung his hat back on, well, we've been successful, we've been competitive, we've still been very good. You can say all you want about us being exposed, but we still maintain this level. And then many of us on the back end of that said, well, yeah, that's because Russell Wilson's magical and he's doing fairy dust stuff for you every week. That doesn't mean your defense is working. But does he expect him to go to a 3-4 defense when his roots go all the way back, I think, to the Vikings 4-3 scheme back into that day, to the 49ers 4-3 scheme, to his 4-3 stuff at the Trojans? I just don't think he has any kind of 3-4 stuff to him at this point. I just don't think it's in his deal, and you certainly can't do it now. You'd have to bring in a defensive coordinator who specialized in that, maybe a Wade Phillips type. That's what you'd probably need to do, and just have Carroll be more of the game manager and keep his hands out of the defensive side of the ball. That would be wonderful to have something like that happen. I think Carroll's ego, confidence in the scheme would not allow him to do that. Gino says, if we somehow make it to the Super Bowl with this same defense, Mahomes is going to have a field day. Hard not to see that, huh? Hard not to see that. Maxwell, Winnie, we're going 14-2, calling it now. Maxwell, I'm going to stay on that boat right with you because I said 14-2 back in the day, so I say, okay, let's do this. We're going 8-0 on the back end. Going 8-0. Let's go. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes here, Maxwell. I love your confidence. Liam says, what did you think about DJ? I thought he looked pretty good until he was benched for a missed assignment. Yeah, you can't miss assignment. He's had a couple missed assignments at points. We saw one sack he had back a couple weeks ago where the blitzing linebacker got right up in the middle. And certainly today, when you're looking at why so many blitzers are getting home, you can probably point to there being some problems with how our guys are picking up those blitzes. Air's blowing like crazy. But I thought he looked good early on as well, Liam. I thought he ran a lot better this week. He looked a little more able to keep his feet, getting through traffic, clear through the trash. He looks good on those pitch plays. They're able to get him out in space and get him going where he can get that build-up speed going. He's a little bit better because he doesn't have necessarily the explosive quickness to get into the hole and get through the hole fast. But he was pretty good in that respect. You know, he's going to be a rookie. You can't expect him not to have some blown assignments. That's why it sucks when you have to go to rookies. Your preference there is to have a Travis Homer probably there as your starter, your third down back, and this kid kind of come along, and maybe at the end of the year you start to acclimate him in as opposed to mid-season. Jaboy Michael misses Carson, and I miss him too, Jaboy Michael. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Derek, the Seahawks Lightning fan says we built our confidence next week and go on a run. 14-2 or 13-3, calling it right here. Yeah, and for you folks out there that are really dismayed by the fact that we haven't played anybody as of yet, and you look at our schedule and say, see, this will show that we'll be exposed down the line. Yeah, exposed by who? Exposed by who? You're going to win the next 49er game probably, because I don't think that they're going to end up resting probably Garoppolo, probably resting Kittle, and I think you'll probably be able to win that game. You're going to, in my opinion, you beat Washington, you beat the Giants, you beat the Jets. You got to play the Cardinals at home, and you got to play the Rams twice. So maybe those teams beat the hell on us. Maybe they just drive us into the ground. I'd say it's more likely you could look at it, the worst case scenario, as a split with those type of teams. That still puts you in a position of the to me 12-4 range, doesn't it? Potential 13-3 range. So it's not like the schedule is going to get super more harder than it is right now. It's going to we got to go through Murderers Row in a couple weeks. No. You're in the hardest part of your schedule right now. This stretch right now is the toughest part. Then it just gets real easy. Randall says we need a running game, too one-dimensional. Screen game would be cool, too. I agree. Both those two things are things that will help out in pass protection. We'll slow down the defense. Won't just let them pin their ears back and go. Ahmad says we should offer Ravens defensive coordinator our head coach job. Not after that extension, Ahmad. Not after that extension. Irina, we always have that one game every year where we do everything wrong and it seems the opponent does everything right. Last year, it was Week 13 against the Rams. It's a good comparison, Irina. It's a good comparison. The only thing with that this week is that, to me, it's not an everything wrong game from our offense. It wasn't like, Russell has a couple of interceptions, but he's having to press because they can't punt. They can't have their mind even open to the option of punting. So that puts them in position. We got to score every single time. When you create that mentality on your offense, and especially with your quarterback, the quarterbacks are already trying to do so many different things. They're trying to balance between protecting the ball while taking their shot at the right moment, while making the reads correctly. Now you get them into a simplistic approach of just the gunslinger, throw it all over the place. Everybody loves themselves gunslingers. Everybody loved themselves Brett Favre. But Brett Favre probably owns the all-time record for most interceptions in NFL history. And that's kind of some of what you get with that. So that's the part that, to me, is the lingering part of this game that's not just this game. The defensive liabilities are not just this game. It's what we've seen carried on through pretty much every game, with maybe the exception of the 49er game, where it even showed itself a little bit at the end of that one. Minnie V says we need younger players. Probably do need to get a little bit younger on certain spots. We need more talent, Mindy, as much as anything. We need more talent, and we need some of this could be the scheme. Hard to say on that. Maxwell, when he says it was a tough matchup for our defense. When a team can score at will on your D, it's hard to keep it in the game if there are any errors on offense. Thank you. It's exactly what I'm saying. Ahmad, we can't get we signed the guy to extension. We signed Carroll to an extension. They're not going to fire him right after they sign him to extension. Space, what's up with Snacks? Snacks Harrison is a one-tech defensive tackle, folks. To the layman out there, the one-tech is not the three-tech. The three-tech is the pass rusher who goes up against the left guard predominantly. Snacks is the guy that's going to line up usually between the center and the right guard. So he's there to take up space, hold his ground, not get eaten up in the run game. He's not a guy that gets a lot of pressure. That's not his game. So asking Snacks to come in here and be the savior for what we saw today probably wouldn't have had any impact or improvement over what we saw today, in my opinion. I don't think so. We need a better play out of Bullard, Bulford, or whatever. Joe Lee says, why would any team try to run when passes are wide open every time? I agree. Joe and the offensive coordinators throughout the league have started to do this math. Saw it in the Patriot game. Saw it in the Falcon game. Saw it in this game. Why should we try to run the ball? We could get 15 yards of pop throwing the ball, and our quarterback's not under any pressure. He's not taking a lot of hits. They're not getting even close to intercepting the ball. Our offensive linemen don't even have to try hard enough to where they're on the line of holding. How many holding calls were called on our defensive line today? Was that because the officials weren't calling it? No, I don't think so. I think they just weren't challenging the offensive linemen that much. Down the chat here a little bit, see if we can catch up. Jeff Ryan says, unfortunately, we saw this coming a few weeks ago. We ended up a one-dimensional offense today. And let's be honest, we were excited about getting Jamal and Carlos added to the lineup. Yeah, we did see this kind of coming. I agree. You could see this kind of starting to stack up for this kind of performance to come down the line at some point or another. You know, chickens coming home to roost, as I like to say. Michael Simon says, Russ, first year with a losing record. I'm done with them. Oh, wow, Michael. Wow. That would be crazy to end up with a losing record this season where you're starting. I mean, you'd have to really fall off a map. I don't think that they're there. I think we've got to give some credit to this Buffalo Bill team. That's a good Buffalo Bill team. They got a good offensive line. As they said on the telecast, they've invested as much money or more money than any team in the NFL on their defensive line. Boy, wouldn't that be nice. They got a guy like Tre'Davious White out there that can lock a guy down relatively well, even though he had his hands full today with DK. But Micah Hyde's a good safety. That other kid, they got a kid by Pro Football Focus who's one of the highest-rated rookie defenders in the league right now. So they drafted really well. They always draft really well. You have to when you're Buffalo. So you've got to give a little bit of a tip of the cap to Buffalo here and the type of team they've assembled and built up over the last few years. And they also played a really good game. But, Michael, I'm not opposed to giving people their view on it. And if we are ending up in that point, I will give you a shout-out for being right on it. Mindy V says maybe they aren't good with play, so then try to look for talented players, but not what? Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard on finding talented players, too, because you're going to have to look in free agency. You don't have a lot of draft capital. You're going to have to maybe try to get kind of creative here if you're going to look to upgrade this from a player standpoint. I don't know what they could do. I don't know. We'll have to think through that and unpack that. Dave Widger says, defense was terrible. But what about the Travis Homer 2 run calls in the third quarter, which killed the drive? Fair play to Josh Allen. I thought he looked awesome today. Dave Widger, I don't know. I think when you saw the Bills embracing fully the need to have to throw the ball and running wasn't going to work. Yet Seattle gets down there and again starts getting touchy with, well, we got to now run the ball. We got to run. No, you stay with the guy who's got more touchdown throws in the red zone than anybody in the NFL, who's running the the most effective red zone offense in the entire NFL, let him go. Odd for me too. And yeah, we've got to give Josh Allen some props in this game. He's a guy who draws a lot of comparisons to being a guy like Cam Newton. But when I look at him today and I was watching him, specifically kind of zeroing in on some of the stuff with him from a mechanic standpoint, he's getting better with his footwork. He's getting better with the motion being a little more fluid and how that ball comes out of his hands, which is leading to him being more accurate than he was when he first came out. As opposed with Cam, we always saw with him, he never really learned how to utilize his base very well. Everything comes from basically from the shoulders up here. It's just all being whip. He's trying to get that whip motion going. So props to Josh Allen today. He played a good game. The Bills, a good team. They're going to be a tough team in January, especially if they can get home field advantage in the playoffs. Emmett Brown, Pete's fastball is the old version of Felix Hernandez. That is a low-key underrated comment, Emmett. Awesome. Yes, I think that's very true, man. I think that's very true. Jeff Rhines, for sure, Homer is a weakness when we expect him to be a runner and not a blocker. Yeah, I don't like him as a running back right now. Honestly, him or DJ Dallas, really on either of them, they don't impress me very much as runners. Just not a lot there for me to be impressed by. Jay Hornsby, well, bro, you called that one. Our corners are pathetic. On that note, a lot of season left. We will bounce back. Go Hawks. Love it. Love the positivity, Hornsby. And thank you for the props on it. It was a tough game of the road, 10 a.m. game, and Carroll's done a great job. We are knocking him. We are being hard on him. But one of the places he has been very good in recent years, and I again mention it because this is a problem that plagued our Seattle Seahawks organization through 4 different coaching staffs. And that was an inability to get your team up and ready to go and ready to play in those 10 a.m. games. It's a very, very low-key, hard thing to do. You're in Buffalo, of all places. It's fall. It's mid-season. You're just assembling back in some new parts and pieces into the mix. You're missing your main cornerback. Your other cornerback's got a dodgy knee. Stuff's going to happen. Stuff's going to happen sometimes. Doesn't mean that this is just a one-off, but there is some of this we've got to do with a bit of nuance all across the board, just a little bit of nuance. That's why I'm not necessarily going over the dam freaking out. Gino says, I can't wait until we play that damn football team with Alex Smith throws for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. Oh my gosh, that might be the most brutal side of the season if that happens. Michael says the only win coming up is the Jets. Can't say I disagree. I can say I disagree 100%. We're going to beat the Giants. We're going to beat the Washington football team. We're going to beat the 49ers next time we play them. So that's 4 wins right off the top right now. What are we, 7-1 or something? 7-2, something like that, or 6-2, something. I don't know. So that's 10 wins right there. I don't know. We'll see. Bro Moment says Miami up by 4 at the 2-minute warning. Hope they win. Oh, me too, man. I'm sure I'm going to find out by the end of this chat because I'm kind of behind in the chat, but hope so. Hope so. Go Dolphins. B-Russ says, do you bring in Earl at the league minimum? Diggs does not look like the guy he was last year. Yeah, I would. If you're looking for a strong move right now, if you're looking for like a move to like shake things up, you release Quandre Diggs tomorrow. You're not on the hook for any bonus money with him. You say what you save in his money. You then go out and sign Clay Matthews and bring Earl Thomas back. If you want to mix it up, I mean, if you guys want to do like a just holy moly, that's like throw it on its ear, because I would agree. I think Diggs has not played good football this season. Nothing like what we saw last year. Just hasn't. I called him a poor man's Earl Thomas last year, and he's not even a homeless man's Earl Thomas right now. Minnie B, you should be more honest about the way you feel. The thing I try to do, Mindy, is people like to speak in absolutes, and I don't like to speak in absolutes. I'll make hardline predictions. I'll say where things are going to go and where I see it going. But I think when you deal in absolutes, you sometimes miss nuance and really trying to kind of round out the full picture for what it is. So when you look at this loss, it's very easy to say, okay, the defense just sucks. We suck. We can't do anything. Yeah, it's simplistic, easy, fast, sure. But fast doesn't mean it's accurate or means it's fully fleshed out. And that's what I like to do in these live shows and take the amount of time that we take to really flesh these things out in totality rather than just looking through the narrow scope. Because just picking on one part of the problem isn't looking at the whole problem. I appreciate you. Emmett Brown, our D and O-line lacks creativity and ability to adjust. It's sickening with a Hall of Fame quarterback in his prime. Agree. All the counts on that, man. What you could get with an offensive coordinator that was a mastermind like offensive coordinator like Shanahan or McVay or Bieniemy with the Kansas City Chiefs and what he could bring to the mix sucks. Randall says, I don't feel horrible about this game. A couple of bounces, it's a different game. Biggest concern, running game and our corners. I disagree that we didn't get a rush with 4. Didn't matter, can't cover. Yeah, I mean, it's you're not going to be able to cover. It's just the ability to drop more guys in zone. When you're dropping those guys into blitzes, the zones get larger. The guys have to cover more space. There's more ground, more open grass, that kind of thing. Hornsby says, we definitely need the rest of our... Stop me. I'm not making excuses. I'm telling you, I'm Indy on how the game's where I see the game at. We definitely need the rest of our team on injured reserve back, and Wilson needs to take care of the ball a tad bit better. Is Gordon and Penny due back our next game, and what about snacks? Boy, we especially, I think we're missing Gordon on that throw to Swain down in the end zone where it was sort of one of those trust throw balls that, boy, Gordon goes up and gets that catch in that moment, I think, where Swain can't. But let's see. So I don't know on when we're getting those guys back at this point. It's still opened up, but we do need them back. We need more firepower there. As far as, this going forward with the Russ under pressure, if you're asking him to throw 45 times a game, he's going to get hit 10 to 15 times like he did in this game. That's going to be probably an aspect of that more often than not. A lot of times you can protect him, but teams that got any kind of good pass rush are going to get there. There are just too many opportunities to get there at that point. The better thing to do is have some balance offensively, but then that goes back to needing the defense to not be a sieve, to not be just this open hole that offenses can run up and down the field on, putting pressure back on the offense to score every play. It's one thing, it's like a link in a chain, one thing connected to the next. Seahawks, H&L says, honestly, I think our defense will do all right against statue quarterbacks like Jimmy G, but any mobile quarterbacks, our defense will be god-awful. Maybe. There is more growing evidence for that that being the case. James Stoltz did not look anywhere near Super Bowl worthy in all 3 phases, says James. Maybe not. The special teams unit wasn't horrible today. Myers got another nice little kick there, I think, on the field goal. But I get it. I get where you guys are coming from on it. And I feel your energy, and I understand it. Michael says, I am not going to continue listening. I don't know why you are so upbeat. I'm going to unsubscribe. I no longer care what the Seahawks do this year. Well, Michael, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I don't know what part of this I'm being positive on, folks. Both you and Mindy seem to want me to just start tearing and ripping everything apart and crushing it. I've been saying this stuff week in and week out. I've said it with energy and gusto. I've pointed it out. I was the guy saying we need more than Carlos Dunlap. Carlos Dunlap's not the answer. I don't know what more words I can say or articulate it any more clearly that this isn't enough. This defense isn't enough as far as the talent goes. But the problem is where we arrived today versus last week or the week before. We can't do anything about it. There's no more trades to be made. The trade deadline is passed. What we see right there, the die is cast. What sets and hangs in there is what is going to be. We can't look at it and go, well, what else could we do? What else there to do? You can't bring another coordinator in. You can't bring other players in. It is what it is. So we can try to hope and look for the place where it gets better. And if it goes bad, then we can all start launching the torpedoes and fire Carroll and fire Norton. I don't care about the extension. Get somebody else in here, and I'll be on that boat. But it doesn't do any good to do that right now when there's 8 games left on the season, 7 games left on the season, and a lot of winnable games on it. But it's not my style, folks, to just go into just hammerhead phase of tearing things apart. Not unless I'm truly at a point. I'm not shocked we lost this game. Did you guys think we walk into Buffalo at 10 a.m., a team that's going to win that division, and just hand it to them? Was that what you guys were really operating off of? You got to respect the fact the NFL is a league of parity more than any other league. Basketball, baseball, any other league. The difference between the teams and the talent and all that is a very close margin. Energy's crazy. Pitta, 76. I also think at offense, Shoddy is not creative, making plays that use mobile quarterbacks like other teams use them. Agree with you, Pittis. I agree with you. Shoddy is not an inventive play caller. I've pointed back to he's done a few things in the last year and a half to kind of add some branches to it, but it still is at the end of the day in its base form, Schottenheimer Marty ball from, the 80s is what his dad ran, which is the run-heavy offense that doesn't have a lot of complexity or inventiveness when it comes to the passing game. I like to watch NFL, says at least we got 7 sacks. We did indeed on that. Spider Horner, Jamal Adams trade, not worth it at this point. Can't disagree with you on that, Spud. At this point, that trade, and I'm one of the big proponents of it. I did a couple videos on it saying why I thought it would be a great trade for them. But right now, that trade looks pretty bad in retrospect. I mean, he's not providing an impact on the football field that you would hope to get for 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick. You would hope that you get a lot more than this at this point. Darren Toy says, good to be back and watching the stream while at the station. Unfortunately, we had a house fire during this game, and maybe it was a good thing because I heard we got trampled. We did. There are hoof marks all over the back of our guys' jerseys and on their uniforms. We did, Darren. It was a little bit of a rough game. The defense right from the start just couldn't do anything to stop Buffalo. They looked like it was like a college football team on defense playing against an NFL offense. That's the way it looked. And you stomp your feet. And I know people want me to be frustrated on this, but I've run out of words to articulate it on this. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I said at the end of the last year, as soon as we lost against the Packers, go back and look at my stream on that. It's still up. You can still look at my words. You can still see that I'm telling you right now the truth. I said to you, we need to go into this offseason and we need to attack the defensive line. Not just, retool, reload. We need to attack it. We need to rebuild this thing up from the back end, back to the front, rethink it all the way around. And instead, they tried to do these little patchwork holes, and then they panicked when they found their patchwork holes didn't work and traded for Jamal Adams. And now I've gone out and gotten Carlos Dunlap, trying to just, there's so many holes breaking out on this dam, and for every hole that they patch, a new one seems to break open. It's tough. It's tough. Anthony Bain says, I thought Dunbar was a top 5 corner, though. That's what all PFF said. Yeah, he's not played at the level that he played at last year. He's not a guy that's built for zone, though, either. This was the fly in the ointment for me when we went and made the trade for him, and that is that Dunbar played with Washington last year, who played a lot of man coverage. Now you're bringing him here to Seattle, where he's going to play a lot of zone. I don't think I have to tell you guys why. We can see why that doesn't necessarily fit well together. And they trusted their ability to have him have learned with Marquand Manuel before, former safety, who was a coach with us before, learned the kick step and all that. But whether it's the knee injury or he's just lost in this type of defense, he's not a fit for it at this point. Not a fit. And that's another one of those moves you look at and go, that didn't work. Benson Mayowa, that didn't work. Bruce Irvin, that didn't work. BJ Finney, that didn't work. Tobias Larson, hello, Tobias, what's up? Once again, Bills send the house on Wilson, and he just can't read pre-snap. Then he goes for the quick pass. His biggest weakness, as we agree on, reading the defense post-snap, damn. Yeah, it was one of my things I said about it, Russell, and it's a good point on that, Tobias, who points this out. I said for a long time with Russell, early on in his career, 2013, 2014, 2015, he was the best quarterback in the league post-snap, but he might have been one of the worst pre-snap. He's gotten a lot further along in that realm, but that is a part of his game this year that is backsliding just a little bit. He's not recognizing where those blitzes are coming for, and he's the guy that's responsible, as we understand it. Him and Posick are responsible for getting the alignment of the offensive linemen, the running backs, the tight ends in a position to block those guys up so that he has the time to get the ball out of his hands and he doesn't just have a free rusher coming at him, as we see too often. Anthony Bain says Dunbar is soft as F, which is why the Skins let him go for a 4th. It was actually a 5th rounder, Anthony, but you're still right about the soft aspect. He does not look like a I don't know. Again, I think it's his knee. I think his knee's really messed up. I think he's probably going to need surgery, and if they had a deeper cornerback play, they'd probably put him on the IR. But because the cornerback room is as light as it is, I think that they're just trying to make do. But he certainly is not a long-term solution here, and we're going to need to probably, you talk about retooling a defensive line, you're going to probably have to retool your whole cornerback room with the exception of maybe the slot cornerback role as we go into this offseason. Maxwell says, with our cornerback play right now, should we re-sign Shaq in the offseason? No. I just think that you just need to invest resources in the cornerback room. And if you got to do that in free agency with somebody else, I'm willing to do it. Shaq's going to want to command probably in the realm of $11 to $14, $15 million per season. I need to spend that money on the defensive line first before I'm putting that on cornerbacks, especially if we're going to continue to play the soft zone coverage that Carroll is infatuated with when he's not blitzing every other play. Nathaniel Park says we need to cut LJ and find somebody else in free agency. He's done nothing at all this season. Can't disagree, man. I called it when we drafted it. It's been a true statement throughout the whole time of having LJ Collier now as we move through his second season. It's a bust then. It's a bust now. His top level of what he could be as a player is as a run-stuffing defensive end. The problem right now is that every team in the book is throwing on us play in and play out, so it's exposing his lack of and limited pass rush ability. He may still have some benefit as a run defender, but again, on a team that needs more guys that can attack off the edge, he's a guy that's one of the shining examples of one of our inadequacies in that respect. Najee Eastwick says, yeah, Dunbar was playing like off every play, looked hurt, especially on Gabriel's second and 27. He just sat on the route and didn't look fluid at all. Yeah, I would guess that there's an injury there. Maybe it's a wild guess, but I think that there's probably a pretty major knee problem there. And keep in mind, I think behind him right now, you got Nico Thorpe or, Randall, who's not a good option for you either back there, so they're probably not loving what they've got behind him. It's probably pretty dicey. Tobias Larson says extend Diggs after this year. Personally, as it stands now, I think not. I love the guy. He brought in the culture in the city, but he bought into the culture in the city, but he has been a shadow of himself these games. I agree. I don't think he's shown me anything there that makes me not think that I'd be more willing to go with Marquise Blair as the free safety of the future, Tobias. That'd probably be the route that I would go instead, as I would look to put Marquise out there depending on where they're at on that ACL. But as somebody spoke just about here earlier, I wouldn't be opposed to with the salary. He's carrying like a $8.6 million base right now. You could cut out right now, and almost halfway through the season, that'd be 4.5 you could clear out of. I might almost be willing to do that if I had an option like Earl back there. I don't know. Maybe it's crazy. I'm trying to think of stuff outside the box right now. Michael says everyone should get COVID and then forfeit. There's our savior to the season, Michael. Anthony Bain, you know who we could have used, a wide receiver that is never covered? I think there's a guy in Tampa Bay. Who has that? Antonio something, I think. Going to be rough watching him maybe be able to be that final piece to push Tampa Bay over the mark, isn't it, Anthony? And he very well could be. And Russ will probably be fuming if he's sitting there, and that's the reality of it, especially if Josh Gordon doesn't get off of suspension. Randall says, how about Russ running a sneak? I predicted a trick play. Does that count? I felt proud when Brock said basically what I said months ago. I've never seen Russell Wilson snap, and he's never run a sneak. That's very true, and it was. I liked having Brock on the telecast today. It just made me smile. At least I know it was a tough game to watch, but it was at least cool to have Brock on there doing the play-by-play. But yeah, this was the first game, folks, that we've ever seen Russell run, I think, a sneak up the middle like that at the goal line. It's never happened in his whole career. They've never tried it. And he got up there with some authority. And I think he just kind of saw it in the play. I don't even know if it was called. He just came up and you saw the defensive tackles spaced apart, and he saw a little gap he could just cut right up into if he just jumped right forward into it. So props to Russell on that play. Nice little recognition. I can't say the word right now. James Wall says, any chance Ken Norton gets fired tomorrow? I'd normally say there was zero chance, James Wall, that it happens. The fact that you do have Dan Quinn out there as a former defensive coordinator for your Super Bowl winning squad on the street right now. It's been a few weeks since he's been out of a job. If you're talking about just for reasons of shakeup and trying something new, something else, you could theoretically do that. But even that, I would put like a 5% to 3% chance of happening. No, I think Carroll will take a lot of this on his own shoulders. Spud Horner, why was Adams yelling at Pete on the sideline? He's just hyped up, just hyped up, trying to keep Pete into it, trying to get that energy right. I think Spud. I don't think there was any disagreement. Probably trying to tell him we got to keep sending the house, something along those lines. Seahawks, do we have a shot at the Super Bowl with this bad of a defense? Do you think Mahomes would have fun with this defense? Yeah, we still do have a shot at the Super Bowl with this defense because your schedule's not going to turn into murderer's row like last year, where you had the toughest schedule in the entire NFL. You're on the flip side of that this season. You'll have one of the weaker schedules perhaps in the NFL. Maybe some of your own divisional games will weight some of that back up a little bit. But that being the case, there's a good chance for you to go, at the very least, if you can't get home field advantage, get a home field first round game, and then from there see where things go. But yeah, you could. After today, after what we've seen with the defense, certainly our chances are starting to slighten down a bit. You need the defense to come into a place where it's going to look like a functioning defensive squad rather than what looks like right now, which is kind of the worst defense in the entire NFL. You know, and if you're the worst defense in the entire NFL, that's really hard to see how you win that Super Bowl with that. Even if everything broke right and Russell was magic and fourth quarter comebacks almighty, it doesn't matter at that point. Flag Sabbath says Pete is loyal to a fault. Norton isn't going anywhere this year. I agree. Pete will hold on to a guy for 1 year too long, especially as far as a coach goes. Idaho Invader, how you doing? Was Dunbar injured, or how on earth could he have been so bad so many times? He's got a knee injury that he's been working throughout the season that's had him in and out of the lineup already, Idaho Invader. That continues to be a persisting issue with him where it just, I think it's going to require surgery at the end of the year. Maybe it's one of those little, ones that they can fight through. It's like a tiny tear, but it's not allowing him, those knee injuries, you can go forward and back, but when you start having to go sideways, that's where you're going to be impeded, and that's where we saw him impeded. I think some of it's that. I don't think he's playing out of his mind prior to when this knee thing really started to flare up. I don't think he's all that much great. At least he was getting you almost an interception here or there. But no, I think the knee thing is going to continue. Tobias says thoughts on Brooks this game. Feels like he did nothing. Never heard him called out, good or bad. Didn't see him a lot either, Tobias. Some of this with Brooks in the last couple of weeks you're going to see is you're not going to see him on the football field a lot because the opposition is playing with 3 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers, and Seattle's answering with their nickel, which is going to have KJ and Bobby out there, which takes one linebacker off the field. It's going to be the rookie in those situations, more often than not. So you're not seeing as many opportunities for him to really flash, but with that said, he's had a couple games here. Have we seen him flash, really? Not much. The Cardinal game, he had a stop against Kyler Murray on a third down, which was pretty impressive, meeting Kyler at the sideline to stop him from getting into the end zone. But other than that, he hasn't really shown you a ton to get you super geeked up about. Sean Wright says, I think it's time to get rid of our strength and conditioning coordinators. We've had a lot of problems with hamstring, ankle injuries these past couple of years. They call him Ivan the Terrible for a reason, Sean. He's a strength and conditioning coach, goes back from USC to University of Washington, and they both places call him that, and it's not lovingly because the programs were more beat up and injured when he was there than when he immediately left. Just getting somebody else, anybody else, by God, anything else in there made those teams that much healthier when he left. Maybe he is a problem in that respect. Space, did Jamal get hurt? I don't know. I haven't heard any I haven't heard any word on that one. Oh, man, I'm behind here. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to try to catch up. Sorry about it. If you're new to the chat, we've run a little bit behind because I do try to get to most of the questions, but I will speed this up. Why did we use Collins more? Dude is BM-like, which beast mode-like, which is why we drafted him a few years back. He easily second-best running back on the roster. Trade Penny, Homer re-sign Alex Collins. I thought Alex did look good on limited carries. You just couldn't run the ball very much in this game, so you ended up having to throw a lot because you needed to get up the field fast. You needed to score points quickly. That will get you out of the running game fast. Nothing will get you out of the running game faster and get down by like 17 points. Dave Widger, positive. DK, another 100-yard game. David Moore, decent catches. Not so good. Our 2019 first-round draft pick, his only memorable moment was a horse collar tackle, which cost a touchdown. That's the LJ Collier horse collar you're talking about, Dave. And yeah, DK continues to be a great player for us, continues his rise and level to that stratosphere that we've talked about a couple times with him. David Moore's also having a fantastic season this year. When he gets his opportunity, he's making his catches. He had even a harder catch on a third down play where the defender was draped all over him. Russell puts the ball right on his body, and he's really got to make a tough catch in that point to get that first down when they need it. They absolutely need it. The receivers have been money this year. If there is one guy I could knock, though, in that receiving core, and the thing we do have to start talking with Tyler Lockett is the drop problem. Where he gets balls in his hands a couple times this year that have been drops, more than we've ever seen with Lockett before. He's having a good year. He's playing solidly. But for those folks that were asking me about Lockett potentially being a Pro Bowler this year, that's going to be something that, to me, in my mind, holds him back. Dunbar's effort looks poor, bad out there, Gino says. It may be, but I think that he's just fighting off something, I think, injury-wise in addition to that. Maybe it's a combination of both, Gino. Emmett Brown says, sad thing is Josh Allen will probably struggle next week and throw for less than 200 yards. He could. He'll be playing against a lot of different defense than what he went up against today. Randall McDaniel says, without the bitter, we wouldn't enjoy the sweet. Since the big kickoff return to start the game, we were behind. We'll be okay. Still think this D will get right. We play them 10 times, we win 7 or 8. Could be it is that way. We certainly got right behind the 8 ball from the start of this game, and momentum is a big factor in football games. And when you get another team gets rolling on you and just gets on top of you, sometimes you just can't get things turned around. Solid point. Maxwell says, if you look at the bright side, we scored 34 points on the top scoring offense and are the top scoring offense. And that is a bright side. Stray Dog, Seahawks are like the Tony Romo Cowboys with a bit better quarterback play. Maybe. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one, Stray. Anthony Bain, we should have signed AB 2 weeks ago and cut Josh Gordon. You could make a strong case for doing just that if you knew that it was going to be you just need to up it up by $1 million or clear just a little bit of cap space for a guy you don't know who's going to play. And the league's giving you no information as far as we understand it on Gordon's reinstatement. Joey Mendez's horrible defensive scheme. Pete covering for K&J, and offense was bullied. Yeah, it's a bad scheme at this point. The scheme has seen its day. Coach Carroll's defensive scheme has officially seen its day, I think, at this point. They've tried all sorts of machinations and adjustments. Nothing is working. It's time to take this thing and throw it in the trash compactor and bring in the new. Something maybe more hybridized. Elena McCollum says Russell looked horrible. Josh Allen played better. Some of it is, I think, I'm not going to knock as much Russell's play in this game. Certainly didn't play his best game. Certainly didn't play one of his better games of the season. He played okay. I think some of it is that they're in a position, Elena, where they're having to score every time. And when you got to score every single time that you get the ball, that's a lot of pressure, and it starts forcing the quarterback to go outside themselves to make a play. I think Russell did a little bit too much of that probably today, as we've seen him do in a couple of other games as well. Crazy Loner, Adams pointed to the fact that all the new players have not really figured out each other out yet. What's your opinion on it? It's a fine point, Crazy. I mean, Rasheem Green's coming back in. Dunlap's coming back in. He's just in for his first, I think this is only their second full game with him and Quandre Diggs playing back there together. So there is a point to be said in that these guys coming in on the back end, and you're all having constant moving parts as far as your cornerback room goes. Your slot corner's constantly moving out. You got Shaquille 1 week, then you got Trey in there 1 week, then you got Dunbar's in there 1 week. Everything's kind of moving around. But that is partly also the NFL. So there is a little bit of truth to that. But the problems that exist are, I think, beyond just they need to figure each other out. I think there's some schematic problems here. Anthony Bain says, can we bench Dunbar and cut LJ, start Ryan Neal? Dude plays hard. I don't know where you couldn't probably play him on the outside, though, Anthony. He's not an outside cornerback, so he'd look even worse there. Larry Clemens is a Buffalo Bills fan. Welcome, Larry. Thanks for hopping into a Seahawks chat. Your Bills team played really good. He says, go Bills. You guys did a good job today, man. Props to you. Tip of the cap. Emmett, I'm not too keen on the idea of dumping more money into this defense this offseason. It seems like it'll be a waste. I'd rather just keep loading up the offense. That's our strength now. Keep building it up. That'd be one way to go, man. It's hard to be opposed to it. I can see the thought process in it. Certainly, it seems like the sunk cost here now. When you keep the more assets they keep trying to drive into this defense to improve it, the less they get as far as returns go on it. Blazers in 6 says, as crazy as it sounds, I don't think this game was on the defense. 4 turnovers, questionable play calling, horrible blocking. I think Russ and our offense lost this one. Well, Blazers, it's really hard to point to an offense when they score 34 points in a game. And especially when, from the defensive standpoint, I don't think that you caused a punt by the Bills until somewhere in the third quarter. Hard not to point to the defense at that point, in my opinion. Elena says, stop playing prevent defense from the damn start. That's how they got down 14 right away. It was what they adjusted to in the blitz game. Somebody mentioned why Jamal Adams was yelling at Carroll, and maybe some of it was that they did start out more in the soft zone coverage, just sort of back, just kind of just being, it was weird with something like those Dunbar plays where he's already 10 yards off in coverage and then starts his backpedal another 3 yards off the line, and you're going, man, are you that scared about getting beat over the top? Jeez. Mike Jackson says, fire Pete. It's going to be tough, Mike. They just signed him to a new extension. But I know where you're coming from. Space, we've been exposed. I don't know if we've been exposed. Maybe. B-Russ, I'm weirdly positive after today. This is a wake-up. Seems like it's 50-50 right now, B-Russ. Seems like half the chat is ready to execute Carroll and Norton out on the city square. And the other half is actually still feels okay that this is just a one-off. Elena, the Bills couldn't score a touchdown against the Jets. That's telling you how bad our defense is. Yeah, that's a tough one to stack up against for sure. Maybe that was the Bills game. I do mention this as well, though, Elena. Every team in the NFL, every season, has a couple of games throughout the season that they crap the bed, that they just don't show up, that they look just listless and out of it. I can point to a lot of different teams throughout this year. There's a reason why there's only been one undefeated team in NFL history other than the Patriots, who then lost in the Super Bowl eventually. But the Miami Dolphins 72 team. It's because throughout a long season, you're going to not show up on a couple of games. It just does happen. It sucks when it happens. It pisses us all off. But you shouldn't take ultimate cues from that as to the direction or where your team is going to end up, certainly. Daddy Mac, is Pete losing to drive? Is Pete losing to drive win? What got him to a championship? A strong, scary D. Is old age catching up to him? Daddy Mac, old age may be catching up to him. There's always seemingly, and I don't know if this is what's going on with Carroll, but when you do see the visage of an older coach getting too old, the game's starting to pass him by, and you start to look and think about the signs that show themselves up, that are indicators of that. Lack of innovation. The game management doesn't seem to be as strong. There seems to be a back and forth between the direction of what they want to do, almost like they fall back into old habits even though when they know they should be doing new things. These are some of the things we do see with Coach Carroll. We do. He's got positives he brings into play. I'm not going to kill him as a coach completely, but certainly when it comes to his defense and the way he has stuck to hoping that he could reinvent out of what he had back 10 years ago, it's been a flaw of his. It has been a flaw. Dolphins are just ahead at the half with the Cardinals, 24-17. Let's go Tua or whoever just beat this Arizona. Clara, how you doing, Clara? What happened to the defense today? Buffalo came out swinging. What is happening to the Seahawks? We don't have any answers defensively right now, Clara. I mean, we can still stop the run, but unfortunately that doesn't matter because we can't do anything against the pass. It doesn't matter if it's going to be Josh Allen or Cam Newton or Matt Ryan. Whoever the quarterback is back there, they're going to slice and dice and cut us up. And our only hope is that there's going to be a couple plays throughout the game at this point where the quarterback throws it behind a guy that he's trying to throw to, or you get a tip pass, as happened in, let's say, in the Dolphins game or in the Dallas Cowboy game when he threw behind Amari Cooper, or last week in the 49er game when DJ Reed had a pass come to him at cornerback that was thrown behind the player. They kind of have to hope for something like that. You don't like to play defense that way, but that's the way that they're going to be playing defense now and as we move into the rest of the season. Idaho Invader says, take out the infamous big screen pass and the weak questionable call against Adams, and the D was actually all right in the second half, except for Dunbar playing too far behind every play near him. Yeah, they were a little bit better in the second half, but I mean, again, I'm going to be hard-pressed not to point a big part of this loss on the defensive side of the ball. I just am. It's really hard for me to find that shining light of hope in here. Yeah, the 7 sacks is good. Yeah, they came around a little bit as the game went on, but still, then you got into the late third and fourth quarter, and Buffalo needed their drive. They went right back, and they were able to hit. You didn't show a lot of fight. You didn't show a lot of energy. You didn't show a lot of juice. That's the part where it gets disconcerting. James Wall, why keep Ken Norton? There's no reason to go on like this. Defense can't get any worse. John, and Carroll's going to take a lot of the blame to himself. It's the way he's always done with his defensive coordinators and say, this defense is my defense. Yeah, Norton's calling plays here and there, but this is me telling him essentially throughout the week what we're going to be calling in these situations. He's executing what Coach Carroll wants. Really, when it comes down to it, with fixing this defense for Coach Carroll, and what I would tell Coach Carroll is you need to go hire a young defensive line who's a bright mind, who's an equivalent of what you'd get in a McVay or Shanahan on the offensive side of the ball, who's going to bring a lot of varied ideas and new ideas to bear here. And no matter your hesitancy, no matter what's in the DNA of how you want to coach, it can't get any worse than what it's been. Bringing in another guy can't make it any worse than where you're at right now, where you're on a historic pace for yardage given up in the air. Pat Bush, how you doing, Pat? I guess Adams and Dunlap didn't make a difference. No, they didn't. They didn't, Pat. Thanks for hopping in the chat. The GOAT says, if it wasn't for the Dolphins and Russell, we would be last in the division. Yeah, it's possible. Luke Scarlett, wow. What's up, Luke? Ali Akbar. Mafia, what's up, Ali? Daniel W., I was completely wrong about I was completely wrong. Our defense is terrible. Our play calling is terrible. Those all-out blitzes into screenplays by blitz is outplay called. But we never faked blitz, then drop back. We just blitzed. Solid point on that last point, Daniel. And I liked what you had to say there, but the last part I especially loved. They don't do a lot of fake blitzing. They don't do a lot of, when they come up and they bring a guy to show them up at the line of scrimmage, they come. And if, let's say, a quarterback recognizes the blitz and calls out his pass protection, they don't then adjust accordingly to that. This is part of the reason why, Daniel, it's just not in our DNA to be a blitz-heavy team with this scheme and with the players that you've drafted to bring here. I've often pointed to the fact that when you look at a guy that's, say, a man-on-man cornerback, asking him to come here and then play zone is sort of not taking advantage of his strengths. Likewise, when you have teams that you've theoretically built to be zone-heavy teams, asking them to then these same players to turn into blitz-heavy players does not mean that they're going to be necessarily really effective at that. AJ Bishop says Dan Quinn doesn't seem so bad, huh? No, Dan Quinn would be, I was hesitant to say that there was even a reason to do this because I didn't know that Dan could do anything else other than what Carroll and Norton have done with the scheme with the players they have in it right now at the moment. But, man, I come back to it can't be worse than what we're seeing right now. Elena says Rams are going to pass us all day long and scorch us. Could be. Flag says boneheaded crap is killing us. Certainly not playing smart. That's certain. Brian Barajas, Jamal cannot cover. Yeah, it's seemingly showing itself that he's got some liabilities in coverage, Brian. He's a good attacking defender coming downhill, but when you put him back, even in zone, which was supposed to be something he was good at coming out of college, he's not shown that up here so far with us. Nessie, I guess, Pete and his philosophy are getting old. He needs to go. I'm going to be in favor of it. You're a defensive coach first and foremost. That's supposed to be your forte. This is your bread and butter. You've put more resources into the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball, in my opinion, by far. You even added extra future draft capital that we haven't even had a chance to use yet for Jamal Adams and Dunlap to reinforce that. You didn't go to the offensive side of the ball and try to add a player. That's where you added the players. You continue to put all of these resources over there for diminishing returns. It's annoying to watch. Soul King, the Bills just simply played better. They did. Can't argue with you, and I agree. Helmi Sethi, so are you locked in on Wade Phillips as our next defensive coordinator or any other good ideas who we should hire? Not necessarily. It necessarily has to be a Wade Phillips. I think if we're going to be, if Carroll wants to start to embrace the blitz-heavy stuff, that's really going to kind of have to come down to what Carroll's willing to then embrace. Carroll's not going anywhere. So understanding he's going to stay here, Helmi, it's got to be, okay, coach, do you want to go back to your zone-heavy stuff? And now we need to bring in more of a zone guy who's going to be more varied in his coverage stuff and do better in disguising what you guys do pre-snap so it's not always so easy to read you and all that. And then as far as ideas for it, I'd have to think of it a little bit, Helm Sethi. Sorry, I keep calling you Helmi. Helm Sethi, I'll have to think about it on some ideas. At the moment, I don't have any people off the top of my head. I don't want an also-ran. I don't want somebody that's a hire of nepotism like we've seen with Norton and Schottenheimer. I want somebody who's a little bit outside the box. Somebody that you wouldn't just think of right off the top of your head as, oh, that guy, Flag says, how can people put this loss on our defense when our offense did some bunk stuff? Well, Flag, again, you start this game off as a defense and you don't cause a punt until, the end of the third quarter or into the fourth quarter, you cause your first punt. So every drive through 3 quarters, you're allowing a score and it's not on the defense. Somebody's going to, and again, you could maybe say that if you're saying, well, we kept them to field goals every time, but you weren't. You were allowing them in the end zone. Some of this stuff can get really simple here. Here's how it simply works out. You start the game out. Your defense can't stop the opposition's offense. They're running up the football field, lapping you. Your offense, which is doing okay to start the game, sees this and goes, okay, we got to get a score every single time. We have to go for it on 4th down. We need touchdowns. That now makes the offense start to press. Then that said offense pressing starts to throw interceptions. To me, that's how this played out. More than this was the offense did some horrific thing here and caused some problem. I just didn't see that. Heat Cranks, how you doing, Heat Cranks? He says Trey Flowers played his best game while Dunbar looked like an Uber driver. He did look like an Uber driver out there. Yep, Dunbar played a really bad game. Really bad game. And if his knee's that bad, I think they just got to sit him at this point. Really, really do. Elena says Russ lost the MVP today. He might have. He's had a couple games where he's starting to trek downwards a little bit. And then there's other players out there like Mahomes who's playing really, really good ball right now. Jacob Yeoman says, Bill Mafia, baby. What's up, Jacob? Congratulations on your Bills victory. Well played game today by you guys. Rodney Burr, Adams looked more like a linebacker than a safety that a guy couldn't cover anybody. He does. He's got some issues in coverage, that's for sure. Doug Hesley says Josh Allen undressed your defense. They did indeed. He did indeed. Absolutely made it easy on Josh Allen. He had no problems. He wasn't really uncomfortable. Yeah, he had some sacks. But again, some of that is you send the house. You give up a 30, 35-yard play. Next play, send the house. Give up a 20-yard play. Next play, send the house. Oh, you got a sack. Yeah, but you gave up all those yards before you got to that sack. And that was a little bit of what happened today. So, but welcome in, Doug. Keith Lowry, Bills baby. We got a lot of Bills fans in here. What's up, Bills fans? How you doing? We don't mind opposition in here. Just be respectful. That's all we ask. Jacob absolutely smacked them today. Smacked the defense. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of teams that have undressed our defense. A lot of hands up our defensive skirts this year, no doubt about it. Alex Hernandez says Josh Allen played great against a bad defense. Don't know how much to put into that. I think Josh Allen's steadily getting better. I like Josh Allen in his ascent, personally. I think he gets knocked still, but I think his draft scouting report still holds into people's minds a little bit too long. I think he's coming along as a player, and I think they called a great game for him today. Team 12s, what's up? Wilson needs to stop turning the ball over and fire Norton. Hire Dan Quinn. Don't care about how long it takes to adjust. It can't get any worse. Dunlap did great, and Bobby needs to run faster. Bobby's getting up there in age. I don't think he's running any faster. I did like the addition of Dunlap. Dunlap looked pretty good in this game. Looked pretty good. And Wilson's going to turn the ball over when he's being asked to throw 45 times a game. You go high volume to that point. That's not just letting Russ cook. That's open flames over a barbecue across the whole kitchen. That's way too much, that many opportunities, especially with as poor as we are in pass protection, more specifically as poor as we are against the blitzes, is going to be a recipe for those type of things to happen. We've already seen it. Alex Hernandez says, can't blame the Seahawks D. Josh Allen is a beast with running. And Josh Allen he's a very good quarterback. He's got every right to claim himself up into that level of some of those great young quarterbacks over in the AFC. I don't know if he's up yet in the level quite yet that I can put a guy like Patrick Mahomes, but maybe as we're seeing Lamar Jackson come back down to earth a little bit this season when he doesn't have 14 Pro Bowlers he's playing with, maybe him and Josh are kind of competing into that second tier of things. I'm open to being convinced of that. King Mo, this was a game I personally saw coming after the Minnesota win. The goal through this stretch was to come out with only 2 losses between Arizona, San Fran, Buffalo, LA, and Arizona again. I agree, King. That was my whole thing with this, is you had 2 cut-ups of this current stretch of games we're in. This was the 3rd game of a 5-game stretch that I was looking at that was our, by far, toughest stretch of the season. Then on the back end of the games, you had the 6 games on the back end that I thought were really winnable. Your Washingtons, your Jets, your Giants, right? Your 49ers at the end of the year. But this stretch, I too saw that as a 3-2 stretch. 3 wins, 2 losses. Now we've started out 1-2, so my prediction's not looking great right now. But it's still there within reach to get to that mark. And these are tough teams to win against, but keep grinding. You can still turn this around. Doug says, Bill's defense is bad. Allen looks like he's better than Wilson. I don't know if I would go that far. I would be hesitant to go there. I don't know if I'd go as bad as to say Bill's defense is bad either. I think the Bills' defense is got, especially as far as protecting against the pass, they give some problems. They can rush the passer. They've got a good front four. They're pretty deep. They can rotate guys in. I think they're all right there. But no, Allen is not better than Russell Wilson. Team 12s, before the season, I was confident we were going to lose this game heading into where I thought we had a pretty good chance. Past me was correct. Past you was correct. I said that as well in the offseason. I thought this was probably going to be a loss for us. Anthony, Bills Mafia. We got a lot of the Bills Mafia in here. What's up, folks? Love having Bills fans in here. Thanks for checking out the stream. congrats on your victory today. You guys look really solid, and you guys look like you'll probably be a problem, especially if you can get home field advantage in the playoffs and get people into Buffalo playing there in the winter. I think Allen works really well in the playoffs in Buffalo with his arm, with his mobility. Other quarterbacks might not play as well there. Be really key for you, like it is for us. It'd be really key for you guys in getting that home field advantage. Seahawks, HNL. Bills almost lost the Jets. Hawks defense historically bad. One thing I'll point you guys with this whole Jets-Bills thing, almost losing to the Bills thing, is we've seen this with our divisional games. Those divisional matchups where you play that same team twice a year, year in, year out, you become very familiar with that foe. It becomes very hard to blow that foe out. So in those games all across the board throughout the NFL, they do tend to be pretty close games. So I wouldn't necessarily take that performance by the Bills in that game against the Jets as an indicator. You can't just take one game as an indicator to everything else. You need more than just that sample size. Emmett Brown says, I have a fear Pete's going to flip Russ to New York for cap space and Trevor Lawrence. Whoa. Then he'll try and build that D again. Plus, Russ will enjoy the media market. New York is one of his chosen destinations. Wow, dude. That just gave me like a little sinking feeling, Emmett. Give me like a little sinking feeling. Because there's a lot of potential set up for something like that to occur. There's a lot of potential there for something like that to occur. And we can dive into all the extras of it, but yeah, I could see it. Flag, remember, there's been some bumps here. I know Emmett seems like he's being silly on that, but I don't think he is. We've had little blips and moments here and there of tiny indicators Russ could potentially one day move on. Elena, yes, Russ losing MVP because of his upticking interceptions. Yeah, probably. B. Russ, I love that move. Drop Diggs and bring in Earl and Matthews. Earl will ball out in our scheme. At least we know that. Bobby and KJ will keep him in check in the locker room. Yeah, if you got to shake things up, and Diggs is not playing well, and he's carrying a pretty nice little salary, and if Thomas is willing to come in and he's ready to roll, I mean, again, we're just talking about shaking things up, and it couldn't be worse doing enter A, right? Cale Gibson, only a Sith deals in absolutes. That's right, Cale. That's right. Doug Helsley says, Wilson looked intimidated. I don't think it's Bills fans. Let's acknowledge this. You guys got your offense ran right through our defense. That put our offense in a position of having to score every single time. You take any quarterback in the league and you tell them they have to score in every single possession. There's a lot of quarterbacks that are going to start as they get under duress and the defensive line's got its ears pinned back. They're going to look intimidated. They're going to look like they're on their back here a little bit because they're not being challenged on anything else as far as the run game goes. So I'm not going to take as much of that with Wilson's performance on that. Seahawks H&L's got the Hawks going 12-4. Could be. Emmett Brown says Bills Mafia has an empty, awesome trophy case. Very clean and very empty. Oh, no. Space, Russ got the hell knocked out of him. Yes, he did. Got hit a couple times pretty bad. Elena says Russ looked bad today. Wait till next week versus Donald. Russ always looks so intimidated against him. Maybe we'll see. It'll be a good game. A good divisional matchup. Christopher Lenz, how you doing? He says Josh Allen is better than Russell Wilson. It's one game, folks. I mean, one game. I mean, Russell's on this historic touchdown pace coming into this game, historic passer rating pace coming into this game, and then he has one game like this, and we're going to go, Josh Allen's better than him. Let's just tap our brakes just a bit. Gino asked when the NFL is going to let Josh Gordon play. I have no idea, Gino. I've been asking that question for a long time. They were supposed to let him know within 60 days of applying for reinstatement. That was 160 days ago or something. Emmett Brown says, at least your stadium has a cool name, Wilson Stadium. It's true. D-Boy says, seems like we are the only fan base where we lose a game and it's the end of the season. Come on now, we lost a good game, and yes, we have a few holes on both sides of the ball, but we're Seahawks. Let's go. I agree, man. I agree, D-Boy. I agree. Let's keep it optimistic still. We got a lot of season left. Maxwell says DK or Tyler would have caught the ball Swain missed. I think so too. Doug Hesley says, I think Wilson felt the pressure of playing against Allen. Okay. Really? Really, Doug? Really? Elena says, boy, a lot of people think off one game Josh Allen's better than Russell Wilson. My goodness. My goodness. I don't even know what to say. It's like it doesn't really elicit from me even a response because it's so ridiculous. Cardinals making a comeback. If they win, they'll be number one in the West, falling off the number one seed and number one in the division. That'd be tough. That'd be tough. I would probably expect the Cardinals to come back and win that game. So another wasted Super Bowl year, says Elena. It could be viewed as that if this goes this direction. If it maintains its pace with the defense, it could go in that direction. Mindy V says it's just how bad they want it this time if they're hungry. It could be, Mindy, some of this, if it's coming back to schematic stuff needing to be fixed, a new defense being implemented, new minds being put in here where some of the tendencies being beat. You know, for instance, on the Quandre Diggs touchdown he gives up initially, Mindy, you're playing your traditional single high safety over the top. What beats the single high safety coverage? What's been the Seahawks beater for that? The crosser deep crosser. So you see the receiver come on the deep crosser. Diggs gets caught between going deep and going underneath him, gets stuck in between. Receiver goes up underneath him. The throw's right on point. Touchdown. Some of that's schematic. That ain't hunger. That's schematic right there. But that's some of the stuff where I come back to again saying, I don't know if they could fix that because it is schematically. B-Russ, your analysis is great, man. You're analyzing and critiquing while remaining positive. Some Seahawks fans are too used to winning. Wasn't always this way. Season ain't over, and we will end strong. Thank you. I appreciate that, B-Russ, and I agree. I think it's easy to be negative. And look, I'm one of the more. It's funny because I'm one of the more negative people you'll find out in Seahawks channel land. I harp on stuff, and I'll get negative and everything else. But I'm not going to draw conclusions off of one game. I'm going to look at the season in totality. I see right now we've got 2 losses on the year. That doesn't matter who you played or where you played or how you played it. That's the reality of it. One of the better teams in the NFC. You got to tighten some things down. Either ebbs and flows the year. There's teams that can start out looking certain ways on certain sides of the ball, and it can change, and where you can reverse your fortunes as you go along. That has happened in NFL history. You know, let me give you an instance here, okay? The Colts a few years ago won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. He finally got to the mountaintop, finally won that. And the big thing holding them back throughout the early part of that year was Manning was lighting it up offensively speaking. But their defense could not stop the run. Everybody was running over them. And defensively, they couldn't do much. And then as the year went on, just got a little bit better, still bad. But then right at the end, the last 4 or 5 games of the season, it turned on and they suddenly became not just a decent run-stuffing team, but a great run-stuffing team. Will that switch flip with Seattle here? No, maybe not. But is the potential there for something like that to still happen with the way stuff goes like this? Yes. Zach, and thanks, Maxwell. I appreciate you being positive too, man. Zach says, can't wait to get Shaq Griffin back. I liked how the pass rush looked today, but we really need to clean up that secondary play. Yeah, as bad as the pass rush has been this year, that secondary has been right behind it as far as a disappointment for me. And the complete secondary unit, by the way, not just the cornerbacks, but the safety play as well. They're not doing a struggling front seven any benefits, any help. They're not being sticky in coverage, not giving our guys a little extra time. Those guys are just leaving wide open holes in their zone to get chopped up left and right. It's been disappointing. And Shaq, as hard as I've been on him throughout this year, he is at least better than what we saw out of Dunbar today. John Staff says, not seen enough Disley. I agree, John. They seem to be featuring Hollister for some weird reason. Maybe they're trying to validate the $3.2 million they're paying him this year. Whatever the reason is we're not seeing a lot of Disley on the field at this point. I don't know if he's struggling with something or what it is, but it's been odd that we haven't seen him featured a little bit more. I was open to them starting slow with him and bringing him along a bit, but now we're midway through. You know, when's he gonna have a game here where he gets 5, 6, 7 targets? You know. Emmett says, true, after the deadline to the last game of the season, it's all up to the players and coaches we have. Nothing to do until the offseason, unless we have a miracle firing. That's it. And that's where some folks are saying, what are we going to do? Like, what can we do? The time's passed. This is why I pounded the drum so hard saying Carlos Dunlap and more. Snacks Harrison and more. More. Go for it now. Kick the can down the road. Sacrifice for your future for the now because it's desperately needed. Now, would it have been more sunk cost, more diminishing returns, that value you got back? Maybe. But I would have taken my chances with that. Now we've arrived at the point that it is what it is. And it ain't changing. So we ride or die with it. And if it's a die, then we'll pick it apart like an autopsy at the end of the year, and I will tear everyone apart on that coaching staff. But as it is now, we've got 8 games remaining, so I will keep my knife sheathed, and I will wait, and I will watch. Lizzie Dowd, how you doing, Lizzie? Seahawks looked like they had 2 left feet today. Yeah, they did look like that. That's a great comment. Joey Mendez, whatever happened to a screen pass? I don't know. That was one of my big problems in watching that pass rush. The way you beat a pass rush is with hot routes in the screen game and with running the ball, but they couldn't run the ball, so that was out. The hot routes were getting eaten up by the sticky coverage of the Buffalo Bills secondary. Okay, you fall to the third aspect, which is running the screen game, which they didn't even attempt to try. Sometimes this offense and Schottenheimer will just totally forget about parts of the offense that he can utilize. Just gets one-track minded on certain things, and they just don't move off of it. It's odd to see sometimes, especially when you watch him finally do it to Travis Homer at the end of the game, and he gets an easy 20 yards on the play. Washed Rage. Dunbar is just not good. Yeah, I don't think so either. You really break it down, that is the bottom line on him. He had his good year last year in man-on-man defense, but in his own defense, knowing his injury history, knowing the guy always gets beat up, I'm looking somewhere else this offseason. There's no chance I'm re-signing him at this point. 0 zip zitch, nada. Joey Mendez says bullied and battered. Yep, we were for sure. Elena says Russ needs to play up tempo, rolling out from the get-go to loosen up defenses. I'd be open to it. Elena. I'd like to get him some easy completions to start the game mainly. Make the game a little easy on him just to start off and get him in rhythm. DVX 13-15-7 says Russell is 31-8 after a loss. I still feel he's playing at MVP level. He just can't do it all by himself. He still gives you 34 points a game. The defense forces him to play reckless at times. And it's a great stat you pulled up there, DVX, and that is, of course, that Russell is 31-8 after a loss. And for those of you wondering, that's historically the best in NFL history. He's the best quarterback in NFL history after a loss. His winning percentage is 800, and just ahead of guys like, I think, Peyton Manning and someone else who's a notable name on there. But it's an interesting stat that when you look at that one, and I would expect them to bounce back strong next week. And again, that's why I don't put a lot of this on Russell, DVX. I'd like him to be more careful of the ball to a degree. Certainly the fumbles aren't great. Needs to be better in recognizing the blitz. There's things Russell can clean up in his game. But their offense is being asked to do a little bit too much at times. Scoring every single possession is asking them to play at too high a level, in my opinion. Gino says, pain. Emmett Brown, house fire. Sorry, bro. Hope you're safe. We could send Dunbar and Adams to help. They're used to getting burnt. Washed Rays, our offense is fine. It's just our defense. I agree. Agreed. Zach, yeah, I think Dunbar is definitely injured. I do too. Chase, Dunbar, he's been great all year and had one bad game. Nah, Chase, I don't think he's had a great game all year. He's had times where he's jumped routes and got his hands on balls. And so that can stick in your mind as to, oh, he had a great game that game. But that's the rest of the game. When you look at how he played through the rest of those games, it wasn't that good. I think it may have been the Viking game he played all right, where he was at a decent level in that one game. But the rest of them, no, he's struggled through the rest of the games. Elena says, wait till next week. Rams going to scorch our defense with crossing routes, and Russell will cover Coward or Aaron Donald. Maybe it'll be interesting to see. That's why they play the games. We'll see how it goes. James Wall, let's be real. We can't go anywhere when teams match up the field that fast against us. It could end up being the Achilles heel that tears out the back of our feet in this year. It could become that. I'm not yet ready to make that prognostication. You're just getting back Rasheem Green. You're just getting back Jamal Adams. You're just getting Carlos integrated into things here. There is some time to still kind of fix some stuff out as far as the front four goes. Maybe he starts to be able to generate some pressure and drop back more into some of the zone stuff. But it could go in this direction. This is where it is trending. That is for sure. 12-Man Nation says it's hard being a 12th man. It can be rough at times, man. The good news, though, is 12-Man Nation, don't forget, there's a lot of organizations out there that have no Super Bowls, like the Buffalo Bills. Or don't win at all ever, like the Cincinnati Bengals. It could be a lot rougher as a fan than what we get to watch, which is a lot of entertaining games and a lot of great football, more often than not. I think that's all you really can ask for as a fan. Daddy Max says, can Pete bench Norton? No, unfortunately, you're probably stuck with him throughout the year. I knew which R you meant, Elena. I'm not a grammar freak. Michael Kahn, Seahawks 6-2, still a solid start to the year, on pace for a 12-4 record. So not bad. Is everyone off the Super Bowl train? No way we can go far with this defense, says Seahawks H&L. Maybe not, but there is time for the defense to still improve. There is. Michael Kahn says overreaction Sunday. It is a little. I think there's a little bit of overreaction in the chat, just a tiny degree. I think people have a right to be concerned to a bit, but there's a little bit of I'm sensing a little bit of people a little bit more freaked out than they probably really do need to be. I understand why, but I think just there is a little bit of hope here. It's not complete hopelessness yet. Jaden says Dunbar or Kerry Williams. Dunbar's gotten an interception or two. Christopher Lentz, where are you reading these questions? I'm behind on the chat. Sorry about that. Let me catch up here a little bit. We'll just go through these, see if I find one I like here. Ryan Dallas, we should sign Earl and move Diggs into the slot, or just cut Diggs. That's another thing you could do. 12th Man Nation, Russ looked like he was throwing to ghosts. He was a little off in his accuracy. Elena says, what the F? Fairly soft schedule. We play Rams and Cardinals next. Yeah, our division's tough, but then you've also got the Giants and the Jets and the Washington football team still remaining on your schedule. You got the 49ers team that's probably just about dead and done this season. So, yeah, you got a couple games there, but then you have all these other games that are very easily winnable. Justin Freetag, what's up, Justin? Bills Mafia in the house. These two teams might just get to play each other again, finish the season for the league. They're both that good. I'd love to see a Super Bowl like this again. I'd love to have another chance at you guys. You have a solid team, Justin. You have a team that could be a problem in the playoffs. Like I said, if you guys get first round bye, home field advantage, it's a little bit like the playing in Lombardi when it gets cold in there. That wind starts whipping, it gets cold. If you got a quarterback who struggles throwing the ball like a Lamar Jackson necessarily, you guys have a nice decisive advantage at that point. Man Nation says Jared Goff's going to have a field day on us. Good. Kale says also the hit Russell took where the defender went low while he was throwing really rocked Russ, and he was never the same. Got to protect him with a solid running game. I agree. 12-man Nation says tank for Trevor. I think we've won too many games for Trevor. Justin Freetag, AFC East, whooping up the NFC West this season. Thought y'all were the best division in the game. Not so much. Wow, Buffalo is sort of feeling themselves. You guys have been shit for 20 years, and now 1 year you're somewhat okay as a division, and you guys are going to puff your chest out. Let's take a moment and just remember what the last 20 years have been there for just a quick second before we get too up over our skis on that one. And we'll see on that we'll see how the records fit when it all washes out at the end. We lost to Buffalo, but we're also going to beat all three of the other teams in your much-loved AFC East. So we'll see how the rest of our teams do in that division as well. I'm probably figuring it's going to be more of the same. Maybe the exception of the Niners, who've had half of their teams been injured. Doug says Allen deserves the MVP over Wilson. You could make an argument that he's he's higher up on that chain right now with the way he's played. You could make that argument. Thank you, Nathaniel. You have a good one. Soul King says your offense sucks. Okay. Again, Bills fans, I love talking to you guys, but you got to let's have some better representation of your intelligence here. You know, I can go with a solid point like your guy made about Josh Allen being more of a MVP candidate. I'm on board with that. But then you start saying stuff like our offense sucks, and now you're starting to show the limitations of your mindset on this a little bit. Here at Gouda, always see y'all after the loss to the Rams next week. Laughing my ass off. We'll see. We'll see how the Rams game goes. We shall see. All right, I'm going to skip through some of these comments because I know some people just wanted to troll, which I get. I expected. Justin Freetag says, as a Bills fan, I'm rooting for the Cards right now, especially because if they beat Miami and then the Bills beat the Cards next week, the East is pretty much wrapped up. I think you guys got it wrapped up pretty well as it is right now, Justin. I really do. I don't think the Dolphins are even somewhat of a threat for you guys. For you guys right now, it's just all about the first round bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Camden Productions, good game, guys. I agree, good game, good game, good game. Kyrie Kicks, if anyone plays 10 yards off the receiver, they're going to look bad. Yeah, it's one of this is where we come back to schematic deficiencies. You're already playing in a bail cover 3 technique where you're asking your quarterbacks to play to the deep end of the zone after the snap more often than not. Now you're also going to give 10 yards of cushion to that receiver. It's a little bit silly sometimes. Ricardo Green, Buffalo fan here. How you doing, Ricardo? Welcome all Buffalo fans. I appreciate you guys hopping in the chat and checking out the stream. Seattle is still a team to fear. We in Buffalo know all too well about a struggling defense. I have a heart attack every Sunday. Yeah, we call our guys the Heart Attack Hawks just for that reason, Ricardo, and thanks for coming on in. I think we will bounce back too. We've got some worries here long-term about the team we're looking at and some of the deficiencies we're dealing with as a squad because those deficiencies very, very well may remain. But with that said, we still like our talent. We still like Russell. We still like where this team's at overall. We're not beaten to hell like we were last year. And I like your guys' Buffalo team too. You guys impressed me a lot today. Showed a lot of tough and grittiness. Your linemen, you lost 3 linemen down in injury. Those guys got back out there and fought their way through it. Still played at a really high level with Seattle throwing blitz after blitz after blitz at them. Allen played out of his mind well. He's really improving as a quarterback. And I think your defense is better than what they've been this year. I think they're going to continue to get better as we move along through the rest of this year. So Jerry says it really feels like Jamal was not worth the price we paid. He's a liability in coverage, and as much as he's getting rushing the passer, he isn't a defensive end and needs to be more versatile. I agree with you. This is going to affect his value when it comes to contract time. And while we all thought that he was for certain going to get a contract extension after this year when we could, there very well may be a situation where Seattle puts that 5th-year option on him and says, we're just going to write out on your 5th-year rookie year deal. You haven't earned a contract with us yet. Deal with it. Doug Henley, 2 bad teams, someone had to win. I don't think there was 2 bad teams there. I think those were 2 good teams. Kale says Russ can read defenses fine. It's when he has to force things while playing catch up, all while taking hits is how he gets into trouble. We need to protect him with a solid running game. Yeah, there is a place where Russell struggles in reading defenses, Kale. He doesn't struggle in reading coverages. He's very good in reading coverages. He struggles to sometimes pick up where the blitzes are coming on or when the guy's coming on, especially when that blitzer disguises it really well. It's not the best part of his game. This is one of the places Tom Brady mastered by this point in time in Russell Wilson's career. He had figured out how to call the appropriate protections or get a receiver running a hot route to make sure you get the ball out of his hands before he got hit. Russell's not made that same kind of adjustment to his game. He's getting better at it, but it still is sometimes a little bit of a liability. Jovan, how you doing, Jovan? That was a rough game. Wilson was a little bit off. Secondary played poor, but we knew it was going to be a tough game. At the end of the day, we are 6-2, and we still hold everything in our hands. Well said. Well said. Doesn't matter what we've been leading up to this point. We still do control our own fate. We still do control our own destiny. And if this team can come together, if this team can clean up some of the mess, you still have everything in your hands to go out there and get that potential Super Bowl. Ricardo says Dunlap would look good in a Bills uniform. Laughing out loud. Just kidding. Nope. We love him. We like what we saw. We're keeping him, man. We need him. We need him. James Harden Beard did not think the Bills would play us that tough. I kind of did. I thought they were a good team. It's one of those teams solid up and down all the way through, well coached. Young quarterback on the rise with some mobility. I like them. I like them as a team. Spider Rico mentions the Adams defensive holding call on 3rd down on the sack was a backbreaker and was giving that big screen pass on 3rd down was crushing too. 2 plays there we could have flipped. Yep. I mean, him holding on that play when the guy crosses his face, to me that was a valid call. It was a valid call, and Adams has had some issues in coverage with us to begin. Flag Sabbath says, I never get to watch the damn Hawks games here in Michigan. Yeah, I'm out here in Maui myself, so luckily most of the games have actually been on TV throughout this year, but sometimes I got to go to the bar to watch the games myself. Gino says, let's hire Adam Gase as our defensive coordinator. Good one. Fat Daddy Stacks, all but one game has been live on Yahoo Sports. Oh, that's cool. I got to see how I can check out if the next one, where the next one will be. All right, we got a lot of stuff in the chat here. I'm going to go through some of this to kind of get down in here. Sleepy Hollow Bowl. Diggs has been absent this year. He has been. He really bursted on the scene last year, Sleepy, and he was a great player for us. Really brought everything together in that secondary, almost like the glue. Then he got a high ankle sprain at the end of the year, and he kind of fell off. This year, he's just not been it. He just doesn't look like a good free safety in this league right now. He's not giving you any kind of impact out there. I hesitate to say that Bradley McDougall might have been better than what he's giving you as far as play at free safety. Dillinger Smith, how you doing? He says, go Buffalo. Welcome on in, Dillinger Smith. Adam Paul says Steve Largent was the best Seahawks receiver. That is absolutely correct, as you can see by my shirt. I agree with you. Spitting facts, my guy. Spitting facts. Bash him. The Bills outplayed and outcoached us. Penalties hurt us, and our secondary is horrible. Yep, and penalties are a part of coaching. Let's not also not put that away. That is part of coaching. But yep, agree in all counts. Bash him. Adams just blitz. He ain't Earl. And he plays a different position than Earl. Earl plays free safety. Jamal Adams plays strong safety. Two different positions. Gino says Adams has barely played in our defense. He still has to get settled in. I'm going to give him time to let's see if we can do some more things and get antiquated in. But there's been some good. There's been some bad. Jeffrey Green, Josh Allen, MVP. Go Buffalo Bills. What's up, Jeffrey Green? All the Buffalo fans, thanks for hopping in on the stream. Appreciate you guys. Great win today. Congrats to you guys. As I've said to everyone on this, tip of the hat to you guys. Well done. Rich IMO Umuno. I probably butchered your last name. Sorry, Rich. But he says, you seem classy. Seattle reminds me a lot of Buffalo, where people actually know their football. I like to think that we do. I've got a really cool subscriber base in here, Rich, too, that when they come in, most folks here know their stuff. They can talk shop, talk ball, and you can't not root for Buffalo. How do you not root for a team like that and hope they do well? I mean, it's not even like you get where, you get Cincinnati that's just sort of a cheap organization with a cheap owner, so it's hard to root for them sometimes because of that. With Buffalo, that fan base is loyal. They're every week. You guys probably beat everybody else as far as tailgating. I'd love to see you guys back in the Super Bowl, man. I'd love to see you guys back in the Super Bowl. Basham says Russ doesn't need to work on MVP anymore. That's gone. It's time to win. I agree. I'm not worried about it right now. The MVP doesn't matter to me. It's great if he wins it, but at this point in time, it's all about the Lombardi. Gino Bro says bang bang Niner gang is the cringiest slogan ever. I agree. It is pretty cringy. Extra long John Silvers says, do you think because we were away that was affecting Seattle? Yeah, as I've tried to go for a nuanced approach here in trying to explain this game, I've said there's a couple factors coming into play. One of the factors is the 10 a.m. aspect of it. Let's remember, Seattle's body clock, those defensive players as they're coming into this game, it's 7 a.m. their time. You imagine getting up at 6 in the morning, getting ready to go slam into a man at full speed at 7 in the morning on your Monday morning. It's easier said than done, and you can try to hype yourself up and all that, but we've seen historically West Coast teams going out to the East Coast at 10 a.m. tend to struggle. Was that the whole reason today? Was that all of the reason? Was that a large part of the reason we lost? No. Bills played great. We didn't play very good. Our defense right now is probably the worst, if not one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL. That's why we lost. But there was a part of this of us sort of still sleepwalking to open up the game, especially defensively speaking. Jovan says, we always have a game like this when nothing works out for us. I hope this was the last one of the season. I do too. Rich asks, was Russ off with all the hits? He was a little off even, I think, before the hits. I think today, Rich, he struggled a little bit with picking up the blitz protections. It's on him to call out the blitz protections and get his tight ends in and get the running backs on the right guys. And it seemed like there were times when he wasn't as certain where it was coming from. And he got surprised a little bit, which has fallen in line with a little bit of what we've seen throughout this year. We saw it in the Minnesota Vikings game as well. So that has popped up a little bit here and there. It's not been a huge problem of his, obviously. He was on an MVP pace, but it's been a little bit of an issue. And it cropped up today. Your defensive coordinators called some great blitzes. It's not just sending guys. It's not just the amount of you sending the full house or sending all these people at the offensive line. It's how you're sending them. It's how you're looping a defender around, how you're hiding a blitzer or an edge guy coming in so that the quarterback or the lineman can't see where they're coming from. That's the two differences between the defenses you saw in our defense. When we blitz, we just send guys. When they blitz, they're disguising it. They're doing extra things after the blitz to try to get the defenders freed up rather than just sending everybody full force. Sethi, are we going to draft us 2 new corners after the season? Is Dunbar's acquisition showing us that it's hard for free agents corners to pick up the system and scheme? I would say with 2 yeses on that, Helm. First off, we need to reinvigorate the cornerback position. And in my opinion, doing so, you need to go kind of a little bit like we do with our running backs, where because you play so much zone, if you're going to continue to play so much zone, going out and spending money for guys that are man-on-man cornerbacks isn't really going to help you. It's going to be a misallocation of resources, as we've seen with Dunbar this year. We're paying $4 million for a whole lot of nothing at the end of the day. So I would probably try to. I don't know if we're going to have the draft capital to get both of those 2 guys, and it would be dicey to start 2 rookie cornerbacks. But to the second part of your point, throughout Carroll's time here, there's been 2 free agent cornerbacks, or 2 essentially. We did this with a trade with Dunbar, but he's like a free agent cornerback that they've brought in from outside teams. That's Kerry Williams and Dunbar. Both have seemingly struggled with the kick step. Both look lost. It seems like you have to kind of come in here and be reworked from the ground up as a cornerback to succeed in this particular scheme. All that much more, somebody could make the argument for why we need to throw out this particular defensive scheme. Eddie Castro says, Pete let Quentin Dunbar play hurt. He gave up 3 touchdowns. Yeah, the problem, Pete, and you're right about that, Eddie. The thing with it as well, though, Eddie, is that you don't have a lot of depth at the cornerback position, especially your outside cornerback position. So it was this or Demarius Randall. They must not like what they get in Randall out there, so they're rolling with what they got because Shaquille Griffin was out. So I just don't think they had any other options. Rich says, wait, Russ can't have 40 pass, but Allen damn near had 40 and ran the table. Yeah, that's correct, Rich. We've built an offensive line here that are run blockers first rather than pass protectors first. Take a guy like Damian Lewis, who's having an outstanding rookie year. He's a road grader up there. He's going to struggle in pass protection. He's going to struggle when you're throwing these full house blitzes at him. You don't want to put him in that position all the time. Part of this delineation in the let Russ cook crowd, Rich, comes down to 2 compartments. One compartment is the fan base that wants him to throw 40, 45 times a game. The other compartment is fans like me who say, let him cook, but let him cook just a little bit more from what he was. We, for about the last 5 years of, run pass rate has been about 53 to 47. I'd like to flip that coming into this year. Get it to more of a 53, 54%, which would be about 34, 35 attempts a game. That's where we want to be. That's the magic area to kind of be in where we've got some balance. When you're up at the 40 mark like that and you've got no balance, that's not a recipe to win football games. Props to Allen for pulling it off. He played great today, played great even when he was under pressure at times, but it doesn't work with our offensive line. Your offensive line's a little bit better in pass protection than ours is. Tristan says, I don't blame Russ, honestly, for all his mistakes. He got no help from his running back because we were injured, and when he gets hit like that, he did in the game, he's going to miss some throws. Valid, man. Valid point. Valid point. Eddie Castro says Quentin Dunbar gave up 3 touchdowns. He did, and they all looked bad, Eddie. They all looked bad. Gino says you weren't even alive the last time the Niners won the Super Bowl. Oh, he's talking to somebody in the chat, I'm guessing. Jeffrey Green says Russell Wilson is the top 5 quarterback. He is a top 5 quarterback, yep. And I still think he is one of the best in the league. I just think that when he has no defense to operate off of and it's all on his shoulders all the time, 24/7, I don't think the guy that wins the MVP this year, that's going to be the case for them. I think they're going to have a lot of supporting help. As we saw with Lamar Jackson last year, who had 12 Pro Bowlers on his roster. Russ just doesn't have that same kind of help. Sleepy Hollow says, but y'all end up having to pay Trevor one day. That's true. There's no chance we're getting Trevor. Byron Schmidt says he thinks DJ Dallas has the potential to be a solid starter down the line. I'm still not wrapped up on him being an early down back. I think he's more of a third down running specialist, in my opinion. But he did a lot better today between the tackles than he did last week. Charlie Gross. Hello, Charlie. Emma Brown. Yeah, we wish the Bills had 2 Super Bowl wins just like the Seahawks. Oh, wait. Ricardo Green, as a Bills fan, we would never say Allen is better than Russell. Bills fans are rooted in reality. Well, I appreciate that. And look, Allen's on his trajectory. This is the thing with quarterbacks that sometimes gets lost a little bit. When you understand and look through the lens that quarterbacks have 15 to 17 years to play in this league, they begin a certain way, and then they go to the next level, and then they go to that next level where it's sheer mastery. Russell's at the sheer mastery phase. He's in the middle of his prime. Josh Allen's not even reached his prime yet. He's showing you the flashes and the glimpses, and that's why you've gotten a little bit of inconsistent play after he started high this year. You're going to get a little of that. We got a little of that with Russell Wilson ourselves. Now, as we go 4 or 5 years down the line, is Josh Allen playing at a better level at that point than Russell Wilson? You could maybe even say probably at that point. Russell will probably be still playing at a high level, but where we're seeing Allen and where his ceiling is, he has a lot of potential there. Bash M, as a corner, how do you drop into coverage, see the wide receiver stop, and turn at about 6 to 8 yards and just do nothing? Because you're so scared of giving up the big play, Bash M, and you've had it beaten into your head that you cannot get beat over the top no matter what, no how, no way. And that is what our coaching staff tells to our cornerbacks. It's what they've told to them for 10 years. Do not get beat over the top. This is why Sherman was so good on those deep routes where he was always on top of the wide receiver, even though he didn't have the greatest deep speed. It's because he always stayed to that tendency and he would give up the short stuff. It's just part of the way the schematics are set up. Jeffrey Green, why was the Seahawks defense not really blitzing until the second half? I thought they started blitzing into the second quarter, Jeffrey. Felt like we were going right about the second quarter pretty hard, especially after the first 17 points. Felt like they were starting to roll it up. And within our scheme, Jeffrey, yeah, we blitzed a lot this year. We blitzed a lot last year. But in the general nature of this scheme and how Coach Carroll wants to operate this scheme, he does not want to blitz. He wants to get pressure with the front four. John Robinson says, how were we keep getting picked apart by those comeback routes? Isn't the cover 3 supposed to have curl flat defenders on each side of the field to take that away? It gets a little bit tougher than that because normally there's traffic inside to take the linebackers into the inside, and then you have the cornerbacks in cover 3 playing to the deep side. So it's the thing that would likely be open, actually. Yeah, theoretically, you'd love to have the curl flat defenders get over there, but it's tough to ask them to do that if there's any other players flooded into their zone. And that's what you'd call a Seahawk beater play. Flood the zone. Flood it with one player, bring another player back into that same zone where you put the player in a pickle of having to pick which guy he's going to take through his zone, even if one happens just having left his particular zone. And please do smash that like button if you are in here on the chat. And you Bill fans in here, you're welcome also to subscribe. I really would appreciate it. It helps this channel continue to grow. Please, please, please. If the wide receiver isn't running past you and nothing coming behind you, break on that wide receiver in front of you. Why would you just watch? Well, this is what makes a good cornerback in our system as well, Bash, because we play zone. And this is part of the reason why I said when you look for a cornerback in the draft, you don't want to look for a guy that's a man-on-man guy. You want to look for a guy who's good in zone, i.e. he knows when he can jump a route. He can read route combinations, and he understands in his film study when there's a potential situation where he can jump out and make a play on the ball, and he can forget that deep coverage that he normally has to fall into. It's very hard, though, because it's asking a player to balance 2 different things in their mind at once. Certain players can do it like a Richard Sherman or Byron Maxwell. Other players can't do it as well. John Robinson says, why was Jamal manned up against Stephon Diggs? They were trying to play a little bit of Jamal into the slot, I think, on certain plays, especially where they're blitzing, and that just caught him in a mismatch. They don't have Ugo Amadi. I thought Reed didn't play as good this week as he played last week. That'd be my guess. Nick H says, we are 6-2, no need to panic yet. He asks, question mark, no need to panic yet? No need to panic yet, Nick H., but definitely room to be disconcerted. And if we show another performance like this next week, then we know, I think we start to lean back in the direction of saying this team is going to be a one-and-done team in the playoffs. I would say that. You go into next week and you get hammered like you did this week in the same kind of fashion, you absolutely can come to a lot more of a certainty at that point of going, there's no way this comes together. This is too far gone on that defensive side of the ball at that point. That it happens this 1 week on a 10 a.m. game, on an East Coast game against the team that's going to win that division, no, I'm not going to panic off of that. John says, hey, Brandon, is there anywhere to get the coach footage from today's game, the behind and overhead view, so I can better assess what the hell was happening with our zone? Yes, you can do the NFL Game Pass is what you buy. I don't know what it costs right now at the current point, probably $100 for the rest of the year, but that shows you all of the angles up and above and around. You can see, you get a really great view on that. I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic buy to go get. I've been meaning to do it. I just haven't had the time to do the film study this year, but I'll be doing it next year for sure. Robinson says Dunlap played well. I thought you said Dunbar there. I was reading that wrong. Dunlap played really good. He was really solid today. Active, long, strong, athletic. I was impressed by him. I was impressed by Mr. Dunlap. James Harden's beard says he's not concerned. I'm a little concerned, but I'm not panicked. But I understand there's room for optimism here. Absolutely. Bastian, we need to be able to get pressure with just the front four, not bringing Jamal and Bobby. We do. Front four's got to get some pressure here. It's a big key. And again, it's how our schematic defense works best at its foundational level. It's when you won Super Bowls, you run it with the front four getting pressure. You had this package called the NASCAR package, where you brought 2-3 techs out to rush the passer, and you had 2 dynamic defensive ends rushing off the edge. And you never had to blitz. You were number 31, number 32 in the NFL in blitzing every year because of that. That's where you got to strive to get back towards, not towards getting back into, we're going to blitz more than anybody else. We're throwing everything at you, every play. It sounds great. It feels good. You know, it's like I said, chicks dig the long ball, but there's a lot of strikeouts that sometimes come for that long ball. PPX Gumby says the Bills better than the Seahawks. They are. And as somebody else said, as James Harden said, it was a lights game out by the Bills today. They played really well. They did play really well. It wasn't just like they didn't show up and we got the hell beat out of us. That team showed up on both sides of the football. Chopstick Cereal says, I get a defense, Seattle, and you can go places. I agree, Chopstick. This defense needs to be something more than what it is right now, or it's not going anywhere. Emmett Brown, I have a total faith in Russell and DK, but this whole we always finish the season strong doesn't make me feel better. We haven't finished a season strong in 3 or 4 years. We now stumble to the finish. Could be more of the growing trend. Could be. Could be. John Robinson says, Bills coaches better than the Seahawks coaches. Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. I think there was a very keen difference between those two coaching staffs in this game today. PPE Gumby says Josh Allen for president. Bills fans loving their quarterback, and you should love him after a game like this. Kobina and Stuna. At this point, we need to fire Ken Norton. I said the last couple of weeks, if this performance hasn't shown you what you need to see to fire him, what are you looking for? What does the defensive coordinator got to do from Coach Carroll's standpoint to get fired mid-year? How bad would this defense have to look to get to that point? Charlie Gross says, don't sleep on the Dolphins defense. Are they doing something? John says, I feel like we played a little more cover 2 with Jamal at linebacker in coverage and Ryan and Neal at safety. We would have fared better forcing Josh Allen to hit the deeper throws over the top. They did do a little cover 2 at the start of the game, and then it was sprinkled throughout, but they went blitz heavy for a majority of the game, I felt like today, John. But they were trying to work Jamal out around a little bit, and they found a way to try to get Ryan Neal on the field, which people were really pushing for. Neal had a great little, I don't know if it was a sack or a quarterback hit, too. Point in this game. PBX Gumby says, I'm going to jump on your kitchen table. All right, sounds good, man. Paul Pagano, cutting edge. What about the touchdown after the play clock was at 0? I didn't see that one, Paul. I'm sorry, man. I must have missed that. Jay Dellis, 94. If Shaq was in this game today, I think we win. Could have. Trey Flowers was certainly playing better, was playing better in this game. And if you've got Dunbar was so horrible over there, if you've just got a guy that's even reasonable, maybe you're a lot better, you know. Charlie Gross says, come on my podcast. I'm open to it, Charlie. Hit me up on my Twitter. Hit me up on TheSeahawksNest in private chat or whatever. Or, you know, let me know and I'll reach out to you. I'm absolutely down. John Robinson says, Josh Allen has proven he can hit the underneath throws. You got to force him to hit the deep throws. You do. That's maybe where a little bit of his accuracy wanes a little bit, but he has gotten better in his accuracy overall on all those throws, especially those deep outs, deep ends, the post routes. I think the ball was just right on the mutton there. But I can see what you're saying on that, trying to get them more into just outside the numbers, going deep. He missed on that one throw to Brown, I think, at one point. It would have been nice to try to force them into a few more of those type of throws. PPK Gumby, DK got to stop drinking the milk, looking a little sluggish. 6 catches, 105 yards. I guess that just speaks to how great a player he's been playing at, that he has a six catch, 100-yard game with a touchdown, and the opposition's fans are like, oh, it's a little sluggish out there to me. Jay Dellis, we had really bad play calls. Also think the Jamal Adams penalty was awful call. Dude just tripped himself. Also, that sack on Wilson, they tripped him. Yeah, I mean, I don't bend back on this one, Jay Dellis, blaming on the officials. I think we did get outplayed in this game, so I can't go into that respect. I do agree with you in the bad play calls, both on the offense and defensive side of the ball. I don't know that you were very dynamic in your play calling, that you put your players in a position to succeed at all times. I really don't. So that's a fair point. Spud Horner says, with limited draft picks next offseason, how do we upgrade this secondary? It's going to be very hard, Spud. It's going to be very hard. The more likely scenario to go into would be that you've got Marquise Blair coming back, hopefully to some, not down for half a season with the ACL. But you're going to be caught in a real tough situation where you may have to stretch out and end up paying Shaquille Griffin because you don't have any options out there to bring in. You're looking not only needing already to bring in one cornerback to fit in for Dunbar, now you're going to need to bring in another cornerback for Shaquille too. So if that ends up the case, you might be forced at that point to sign Shaq, despite I don't think the fact most in Seahawks land would like to see that. And I'm not even certain right now where we're at on the corner draft as far as zone corners go. When you looked at the last draft with the top 10 corners in the last draft, only one of them, A.J. Terrell, was a true zone corner. Everybody else was man on man. I don't have a good suggestion at this point for you, Spud. I really don't. And there's nothing out there I don't believe in free agency that would really work. As we've seen, even if there was, would they work within this scheme? John Kim says, unless Russell gets off to a good start, he can't seem to make in-game adjustments and settle in. His accuracy and decision-making really suffers if there's a hint of pressure. Yeah, when he's not sure of where the blitz is coming from, he certainly gets a little erratic in his game. And this game, as it went on further and further, he was not as certain as where the pressure was coming from or if they had it blocked up. He certainly looked a little bit tentative as things went along. Maxwell Stern, Bills fans are so cocky right now. I wish we could play that game again just because I know we would win this time. Also, the Bills have been trashed the last 20, so stop talking, Bill fans. I don't mind them puffing their chest out. They have every right to feel good about their team, and they haven't had a lot of, as you point out, Maxwell, they haven't had a lot of opportunities to pump their chest out and feel good about themselves. I can't hate that. I don't like when they're making weird statements of stuff where it's like the offense played poorly or something like that. You go, okay, come on, let's be real, folks. Jay Dallas says also the hit on DJ Dallas was helmet targeting and unnecessary roughness. Dallas is also lowering his head in that play, so remember they can also call it on the flip side there too, just as easily. But I don't think that this game was decided, Jay Dallas, by the officials. I don't think that's what you're saying, but I don't think this game was decided by the officials. Cody Finney, how you doing, Cody? Dude, notice said last 20. This is now. Get out of the past. John Robinson, all we have to fix is protection schemes in our pass defense. Well, is that all? Why did Russell not check into max protection blocking the tight end and running back? I don't know, but it is on him to make those checks, John. He's got the control to do so in those moments and instead let those guys go out and try to be receivers, which means you got to get the ball out of your hands then quickly. You can't hold on to it then. You got a free runner coming at you. And he didn't recognize that enough. King Denzinger says, Seahawks are goated. I love it. I love it. Yeah, Seahawks are goated. Spud Horner says, and what's your boy with all that Bills D isn't that good talk? I didn't say that. Oh, my D-Mac said that, Spud Horner said. Yeah, we're going to have to ask D-Mac if he's had to reevaluate some of his optimism on that the Bills defense. Let's also face it, though, too, with the Bills defense. They got to benefit from the fact that the offense was running up the football field and turned a Seahawks offense that wants to be balanced into a one-dimensional attack. That benefited that Bills defense and put them in more of a position to succeed at that point. If they have to play a balanced game and we're able to attack their weakness, which is stopping the run, maybe it's a little bit of a different football game. Instead, we had to go into the teeth of their strength, which is their pass defense. John Robinson says, what's up with all the Bills trolls? Well, we're going to get a few in here, and I don't mind it. At least they're being respectful, and they're not going over the top, spamming the chat, which is all I ask for from opposing fans, is just don't spam the chat so everybody can get their comments in and questions in and stuff like that. So I appreciate them being cool. They've been pretty decent. Jaden says Cam Chancellor is the best strong safety in Seahawks history. Yeah, probably. Emmett Brown, who would have thought AB would play football before Flash? That's some BS. It is BS. He should have been back by now. Absolutely should have been back by now. In space, Bills do have a very good defensive line. It's not as much as a standout star here or there as it is just a very talented crew that actually has some depth so they can keep rotating in on you. And the coaches, they can run the blitz game enough to also generate pressure on top of it. Bash says, if I'm Bobby and or Russ, I'm walking into Pete and Norton's office and I'm telling them to change up this defense because we have talent to be at least decent. Yeah, maybe those conversations are going on. We don't know. It could be happening. Team 12's people are hard on Adams. It's his third full game of the season, and on the Seahawks, he needs some time to readjust. And like you said, it was a 10 a.m. game. Yeah, we don't come to any certain conclusions on Adams yet. There's some things that are a little bit like, you gave up 2 first-round picks and a third-rounder. You want to see some impact on the football field with that. And we haven't seen necessarily outside that Falcon game when he has played that impact show itself yet. So I think that's where some of the people get a little hard on him, but it's just a wait and see still. A little more data, a little more information. Just a little more. Bring a little more in. Team 12 says there should be a rule that the West Coast teams, when they are on the road, should always be on the later slate of games on Sunday. I'd be in agreement with that, Team 12s. I would. I think it's a big advantage for those East Coast teams to be able to play the 10 a.m. time slot. When an East Coast team has to come out to the West, they're playing on like the 4 o'clock time spot in their body. That's still that's still in that prime place where you, athletically speaking, are still performing at peak levels in your body clock time. So I would like to see that too as well. Seahawks H&L says Cardinals field goal missed. Dolphins 34-31, 140 left. Oh, we might still be in first place. Terry McBride, Patrick Mahomes, 2020 MVP. He's probably the front runner right now, Terry. Probably is. DVX says Dolphins might win this, thank God. No, thank God. John Nicholas, Bills Mafia is the original 12th man. I'm not going to give it to you guys on that. We'll call you the Bills Mafia. We're the 12th man. I'm me. I'm me. That was a face-off reference for you folks. That was a deep reference if anybody gets that one. I'm me. Emma Brown, seems like every year we find ourselves in running back trouble, yet Penny and Carson have consistent injury history. We need to seriously address the position soon. It was one of the tough parts with Penny so far, Emmett Brown, is that he had one of the cleanest medical records coming out of football that any player that they had evaluated. The Seahawks coaching staff never missed a practice, never missed a game. Then he comes here and he gets a broken hand right out the jump, then this torn ACL. But yeah, you need a little bit more. You need a bit more in guys that are a little more not as injury prone. This was a little bit of the injury problem with bringing a guy like Carlos Hyde, for instance. Very good back, very talented back, but also has an injury history. You start stacking up the injured backs, and then when your backs become decimated, it's not a surprise to see. Part of the reason why I continue to bang the drum for saying maybe it's time we bring back in one Mr. Marshawn Lynch. At the very least, he's available. Maybe he's a shell of himself. Maybe he can't run, but at least he's great in pass protection, which we desperately need right now. And we know he'll remain available. He'll show up for every game. Herbert Daniels says more yards, less interceptions than Wilson. He's got a good chance, Herbert, of winning the MVP this year, man. He's got a great chance of winning it. So, you know, with performances like that, if he can stay a little, with him, it's consistency. So he's just got to stay and remain consistent. And if he can do that, then he certainly has a good chance to go take that. He's going to be right there in the running. And Herbert, I think the thing with the interceptions thing comes down to it's less. Yeah, Wilson needs to throw less picks, but he needs to have less pressure on him to have to go up and score every single possession. When you have that kind of that pressure, you're going to end up throwing probably more interceptions. Dolphins win, woohoo! Love it, love it. I don't want to win a division this way. No. But I also feel good about it. But I don't. Oh, damn these feelings. Okay, I'll feel good about it. Herbert Daniels says, I wish the Bills had 7 wins like the Seahawks. Okay. Ricardo says, I would love if Josh Allen was MVP. However, did everyone forget about Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady? True enough, but I think he's in the running right now, Ricardo. I mean, especially after today's performance against this team, it's gonna vault him, and I think his statistics are right in line with those other guys. I think he's right in line. And I think he's going to continue to get to beat up a little bit on probably some of what you get there in the AFC East. So he's got a shot at it, man. He's got a shot. B-Russ says Dolphins coming in clutch. Wish we could have helped them today, but hey, 3 L's in our division from them is much appreciated. I do. The Dolphins have done some work for our division this year. Appreciate you, Dolphins. Appreciate you. Glad you could knock our boys out a little bit. We need a little bit of our division beat up a bit by you guys. John Robinson says, I remember Richard Sherman being able to play the deep stuff and contest slants and shorter routes. I remember him being close on those routes, John, but he could get beat on those slants and shorter routes as well. I mean, I saw it in person back when they played the Chargers, I think in 2014, I think it was, and he was getting eaten up by Keenan Allen on those short routes. So he would give those up. He'd be willing to give you a 7-yard in and whatever else, but he was not letting you beat him over the top. Team 12 says there should have been a turning point after the Bills scored a touchdown. Wilson almost threw a 60-yarder on his heels to lock it. That was an amazing play. Great pointing out on that one. That play could have swung everything there. Wilson just throws a ridiculous ball off his back foot into the back of the end zone, and it looked like Lockett had it in his hands. It looked like he honestly should have caught it, to be honest with you. It almost looked like Lockett was surprised that Wilson had put it where he'd put it. And if he gets his arm in and makes the catch there, and Lockett's had a couple drops this year. Played good, but he has had a couple of bad drops in some moments. And that one could have changed things. It would have been a tough catch, but it would have been a good catch. Debo's dad says, with how good the Cowboys look today, I can't help but to have hope. What do you think? In that division, Debo's dad, you can have hope. And once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. And, when it does come down to it at the end of the day, you have an offense that should be able to run the ball, even with a poor offensive line without running back, and it should be able to pick up yards in the air. And defensively, you've got guys that rush the passer. Those kind of components can lead to pulling off some surprise wins. Still hard for them to see them beating the Eagles at this point in that division, but it's probably going to be a dogfight right down to the end. Right down to the end. Joe Joe Fancooch. I think I got it right. How you doing, Joe? Do you think the Seahawks will make the playoffs? Yes, the Seahawks will absolutely make the playoffs. How far they go in the playoffs? Do they buck their recent trend of being what we call one and done? They get that one victory at home, and then they go on the road and they lose. That's a tougher prediction to make at this point. That's a tougher prediction to make. But I'm going to have faith still. I'm going to say that there's time to turn this ship around and get things righted. There's still things they can hang their hat on. For instance, defensively, they tend to be pretty opportunistic outside of this game with causing a couple turnovers a game. And they stop the run pretty well. Now, their pass coverage is miserable. It's awful. There's no two ways around it. But within that, there's some stuff for you to maybe potentially kind of fix up a bit. We'll see how they play it. But, yeah, they're going to get in the playoffs. PvP missed list maker. I don't see us winning this year. Our defense will be our downfall. It could be, and it looks like if there's a likely identity of someone that's going to be our downfall this year, a position, a player, a part of the team, the defense looks like the guy standing up, raising his hand, saying, it was me. He's the guy in the elevator after the silent but deadly fart. He raises his hands up and he's like, I'm sorry. Sorry, man. So hopefully not. Hopefully that doesn't go this way, but it could. PvP says, do you think the defense will improve as the season goes along? I think they'll be better than what we saw from today. I think that they're going to give up points to pretty much every team that they play this season one way or another. I don't expect them to have a performance like the Niners through the 3 quarters last week. They benefited from some things in that game, mainly injuries on that offense for the Niners, Garoppolo playing on one leg, etc. But, I think they will get better than where they're at right now. I don't think that this is the bottom of the barrel. This is probably the worst of the worst I think they've looked. We've had some bad performances this year, but this is probably the worst. You got to think with Adams getting more integrated into things. Rasheem Green, who just played his first game, no preseason. He's just kind of coming back into the fold, getting Carlos Dunlap. I've got to feel like this is going to get a little bit better. What's up, JJ, with the Bills Mafia? How you doing? Emmett Brown, Brady wanted Gronk and AB, no problem. Russ wanted weapons, AB included, nada. I think Russ is pissed that his front office thinks Olsen, Dorsett, and Hyde are weapons. Probably does. He's got a leg to stand on with that stuff, Emmett. He's doing his part this year. He's not been the problem. The defense has been the problem. The glaring hole, it was the glaring hole last year. And it's supposed to be the thing that, Coach Carroll spots his expertise. That's his baby. That's where he puts all the resources into. And he's getting no return for all those resources. It's got to be hard for Russell to watch. PvP Listmaker says, just curious, what's our cap space? And do you think we will get better pass rusher and corner next year without affecting our offense? I want the offense to be as is, but get better defensively. I don't think we got a lot of money to spend right now. We might have $1 million left, maybe right now in cap space. They were able to rework the deal with Dunlap to convert his money into bonus, so that does help. They would probably have to cut a guy like Hollister and somebody else to maybe create some move. They went and signed a guy like Matthews, for instance. So it'd be a little bit difficult, but they could pull it off. When it comes to a pass rusher, it's going to be easier to find a pass rusher than it is to find a corner next year. Those are always easier to find. But I would say they'll probably find another pass rusher, potentially, but it's harder to say on cornerback. We've got a big issue with where we're going to get our next corner from. Sorry, I have a biker gang going on outside. I've got Sons of Anarchy outside right now. Debo, in the next week, I think our pass rush will make a turnaround, but our cornerback, strong safeties, and free safeties don't see that making a turn for the better. Hard to see it if you don't have a lot of evidence to see the turn, right? And it really is. And we saw some of the pass rush go through, but the secondary's not looked good. It just has not. Jay Dellis, Diggs is underperforming for me. He's not bad. He was just so hyped up, and I don't see him making a difference on the field. He's not giving you anything right now, Jay Dellis. He just isn't. He's not giving you anything in the game, having any kind of impact back there. John Robinson, Bills fans, go look at your MVP candidate, Josh Allen, against Bill Belichick this year and try to come back down to earth. Tyler Ruck, Cardinals lost. Somehow we are still the number one in the division. Yeah, we got it. We control our fate after this week. It's a good place to be in. You control your fate. You control your destiny. You can still turn this thing around. You can still move it in the right direction. And that's a nice thing to have at this point. Matthias says, woke up late, didn't see most of the game, and don't regret it. Well, you didn't miss one of the funner games to watch. This was probably the most miserable game to watch this season. This was really a tough one to watch. In a season with a lot of games that were entertaining, this was not it. This was not it. Ahmad, how long are we going for? I don't know, man. I just roll and roll and roll, man. I just roll. JJ, Diggs leads the NFL in receiving and yardage. One of my big surprises of the years to you Bills fans and what I've watched is the acclimation of Diggs into your guys' offense and how well him and Allen have worked together. I was a little reticent to think that was going to work smoothly because Diggs is such a pure route runner, and Allen has a little bit of that Russell where he wants to kind of wait to see it thrown open, and he wants to throw off script and scramble around and then throw a 50-yard bomb down the field. But it's been a perfect pairing for you guys, a great trade for you guys. Fantastic job by the Buffalo front office of giving Allen a playmaker he desperately needed. And Diggs looks great. He looks just great. Sushi Rice says Russell will bounce back. I agree. He'll bounce back, and he won't be asked to carry the load as much as he was having to carry today, where they just had to score every possession. 12th Man Nation says, I'm more scared of the Rams than the Bills game we had. I'm not there. I'm not at that spot yet. The Rams have too many games this year where they don't show up. They have a lot of games where they just do not come to play. They really do. And there's game when they show up, they're still lights out. But they have those games against like the 49ers earlier or the Dolphins last week where they just look like they're going through the motions. Kevin Harge, they thought Josh Allen was Jimmy G, both young. I don't think anybody would make that comparison, Kevin. I don't think anybody would make that comparison. Josh Allen's a pure toolsy guy who's got everything you want as far as prototype stuff and how you draw it up from a quarterback position. Jimmy G's a guy with questionable arm strength, limited mobility, who struggles to throw outside the numbers. Two different kind of skill sets there. D-Boy says, so it seems that we are not going to get stronger in our secondary. So do we pay Griffin? If not, what do we do with him? I would not like to pay him, D-Boy, but they maybe get caught into a bind where they're not liking what they're seeing out of Dunbar. Trey Flowers has been kind of tough to watch. He had a good game today. He played a lot better today. But they may look at the situation and go, it's going to be hard with not having a first and a third rounder to get two cornerbacks in this draft because we know we can't get it in free agency. Probably forces them into a bind of having to sign Shaq to some kind of contract extension at this point, unfortunately. Team 12s, I'm being serious. I think I'm a better defensive coordinator than Ken Norton, and I'm 14. Well, maybe hard to say it'd be worse, isn't it? Zay, good news. We're still in first place in the NFC West. Love the good news, and thank you for delivering it, Zay. We are in first place. Not a bad place to be. Only 2 losses. Control our destiny, we do. Control our destiny, we do. D-Mac, Talk Seahawks. What's up, D-Mac? My guy. Jeffrey A. Thistle. Russell has never turned the ball over more. What's going on with that? Jeffrey, Russell's never been asked to throw the ball this much. He's going to end out the season probably having 150 more attempts than his previous career high for a season. The other aspect of this is that he's being asked to score every time he gets the ball, not just be a good quarterback, great quarterback, proficient, but he also has to score every time he gets the ball, because if he doesn't, his defense is going to allow a track meet to take place on the other side of the football. That puts a lot more pressure on Russ to make plays, to go outside of himself, to not just let the game come to him. And that's what we saw today. That's what we've seen a couple times this year. Eric, as a Bills fan, I love your team. Russell will be an MVP, and your fan base is as passionate as the Bills Mafia. We all rooted for you in the Super Bowl. Josh was on point today. Your O-line was an issue. Well, thanks, Eric. I appreciate you, and thank you to all you Buffalo fans for coming on in and checking out the chat. Big ups to you guys for hopping in and checking out the Seahawks fan channel. I love it, man. You guys are always welcome over here. All of you. I agree with what you said, too. You guys are just as passionate as we are as a fan base. No doubt about it. You guys support that team. It's a hard team to sometimes support because you don't have the resources and things that you can call upon that other fan bases can. But you guys are coming around. You're turning the corner at a good point. You got a great coach. You got your quarterback, which is the toughest thing to find in the NFL. It's a great thing to have. You're building the team up appropriately around him in the smart way to build it. There's a lot to feel good with. I actually think our O-line is going to be fine. It's not the issue, Eric. As I was saying kind of earlier a little bit, we're built to be run block first heavy. So when we got our guards are there to be road graders. You know, Posick is okay as a pass protector, but he's probably better in the run blocking game. Brandon Shell, I would say, is the same thing, a big mountain of a man that's there to move people. So when you ask them to now pass protect with Russell throwing 40, 45 times a game, that's not their skill set. As well as one of the deficiencies in Russell Wilson's game is recognizing the blitz pre-snap. He just flat, straight has struggled with it throughout his career. It's gotten better in recent years, but this year there's been moments where it has been a bit of a struggle for him. Excuse me. So we'll see how they come along, but I appreciate your kind words. I think, if anything, right now, Josh Allen's got more of a closer shot to getting that MVP, where Russell's kind of fallen off over the last couple of weeks. He's going to have to really finish strong if he wants to get it. I don't think us as the Seahawks fans are really worried about it either, though, as far as MVP, I could care less with, really, when it comes down to it on that. MVPs are really not remembered all that much. Peyton Manning had 5 MVPs. Who cares? You know, to me, it's the Lombardis. It's winning the championship is the thing that separates you as a quarterback. That's how you're measured. That's how you're judged. Nate the Great, I don't know if we can beat the Rams next week with this defense. They're going to come out inspired to play, I'll tell you that. They're going to come out hearing it all week about how much they suck, how much of a liability they've been, how horrible they are. We'll see if maybe they've got a little more energy or life this next week. But I can understand why you guys don't have a lot of confidence against a tough Rams team. Emma Brown says the Jets defensive coordinator dissed Pete's simple scheme this year. Is our scheme simple and figured out our offensive and defensive schemes? Sorry, Emma, that was a little broken up. Keeping big free agents from coming to Seattle. Okay, so I guess what you're saying there is the simplicity of the schemes that we utilize on the offense and defensive side of the ball, and how our coordinators coordinate those games, a detriment to bringing in free agents to Seattle. And the answer is a yes. I know this personally from having with discussions on Clowney. Now, the money thing was probably the decider on that deal, but some of the reticence, I think, on his part was a little bit in the way that they rushed the passer and the way that the onus of the scheme is placed upon stopping the run first and foremost, while allowing the pass to then flourish. Sort of like you have to stop the run first and then you can get after the passer. And that extra half second that you have to take to stop the run then inhibits you as a pass rusher. So some of that is schematically, and some of that certainly is going to get around the track to certain pass rushers as far as understanding it's tougher. I would tend to run along, though, when we have fans normally and when they know that they get that crowd noise at CenturyLink for 8 games a year. If you've got a pass rusher who normally would want to be on a play for it down deal, they would probably lean towards us. But other positions, sure, I could understand that being a bit of a detriment. Taker 610, the penalty against Adams was a tipping point, and it could have gone either way. I don't think it was a play that was an egregious call against us there. It just the player went across Adams' face and surprised him a little bit, it seemed like, and the legs got caught up, but I was okay with the call. Bills Mafia, good game, Seahawks. Thank you, Bills Mafia, and welcome onto the chat. Good game to you and your team. A tip of the cap. You guys won this game. No excuses made. No excuses given. He says Russell is a great quarterback and deserves another Super Bowl. I agree, man. I'd love to see him get another one. It sure would be a shame if he only ends up getting one. We just, as much as for anything, I want to see another Super Bowl for my team, but just for the respect that I have for Russell as a player and for what he's done for this organization and franchise and the consistent play, human being he is, the steady ship there in the swell. I'd sure love to see it, man. Sure would. Thank you for hopping in the chat. Jeffrey A. Thistle, now every team is going to pass 60 times. The secret is out. They could. There was one point in this game, I think the Bills had thrown 31 times and had only run it 3 times. It's a pretty amazing split to look at. But you may be onto something there. I think teams are going to recognize it more and more, and the word has gotten out. You don't need to run against us. We're pretty tough against the run. You can just throw against us all day, and it won't make a difference. So we're going to have to fix it. And they're not going to stop it unless we fix it. They're going to keep hammering it. Catch-up legends. I don't think it was the Seahawks playing bad necessarily. The Bills played really well. I could go for that. I could land in that camp. I think the defense started out playing pretty poorly. I will say that. They didn't hold up any resistance to that Bills offense out the gate. It was like 3 plays and right up the field for a touchdown. So it's some of it's playing bad. I think the offense played pretty well. I think they just got pressed up against it. But I also think the Bills played really well in this game. They won this football game. Elena says the secret is out. The secret has been out. It has been. We've seen offenses doing this going back to the Cowboys game and further back even to the Falcons game to start the year. Part of the reason that they bailed on the run was because they were throwing the ball so well against us. Elena says Russell looked unaware when throwing his interceptions, clueless. Yeah, he's under a lot of heat. Just they didn't know where the blitzes were coming from, and they finally caught up, being one-dimensional all game. Emmett Brown says this isn't a defensive fart in an elevator. This defense has explosive diarrhea in its pants in the elevator. It's probably more apropos. It's probably more apropos. Derek the Seahawks Lightning fan says, I'm back. Cardinals lost is huge for us. It is huge. We control our fate. Jeffrey A. Thistle says they were only getting sacks when they brought everyone. It is, Jeffrey. At the start of this stream, people were really getting a little bit hyped about at least putting our hat on the 7 sacks, but I don't, because for those 7 sacks, what was the cost? It's like Thanos, But what was the price? Everything. I can't do it in my deep voice right now. Nas, I've been thinking since before the trade deadline, rather than getting another pass rusher, we needed a better secondary. Shaquille going out killed us. Certainly hurt. Certainly really hurt. We missed Shaquille today. Miller Roberts, Cardinals lost. I know I'd heard. It's awesome to hear. Hyped up about it, man. Super hyped up about it. Derek the Seahawks and Lightning fan says, I'm fairly confident in our ability to finish out the season 8-0. Rams offense can't function without the run. We got Arizona on Thursday, which was our run game, which was our game to lose that last week, and the rest is obvious. I'm worried about this game coming up. I don't have a lot of confidence against the Rams, but I'm not completely in a state of they're just going to run right over the top of us. There's nothing we're going to be able to do. We can't stop them. Remember, Goff can't move around the pocket like Allen can. He's not going to evade some of the pressure that Allen evaded today, despite those 7 sacks. And again, in some of the ways the Rams have beat us over the recent years has been the soft zones, the cover 3. McVay's put a whole offense around how to beat Seattle-centric defenses. So now that we flip that up and we're blitzing more often, does some of those same Seattle beater players work against us with more of a statue guy like Goff? And I know where you're coming from, Nas. I'm thinking maybe the secondary could have been better. There was reports out there that we might be looking at Stephon Gilmore with the Patriots, but the Patriots were wanting a first-round pick, which we didn't have to offer, so probably didn't get too far down the path on that one. Arazos wants to fire Ken Norton, and then he asked what my thoughts on Dunlap are. Dunlap was really solid today. Gave us exactly what we hoped to get out of him, which was a good pass rusher. There were times that it wasn't like he was a game wrecker just taking over shop, but I thought he played solid enough for what we gave up for him and what we thought we were getting back from him. He could have easily had, I think, 2 sacks in this game, but he got a sack on a quick pressure, not on a, one of those secondary, coverage sacks. He actually generated quick pressure, pushed the guy right to the backfield, disengaged, got the sack. That's his trademark way of getting pressure and getting sacks. So I was very encouraged by what I saw out of Dunlap today. Ricardo Green says, bottom line, Seattle is not done by a long shot. Both defenses need to help move forward. On behalf of a mature Bills fan, myself 40 years, good game. Well, on behalf of me as well, Ricardo, another mature fan, plus 40 years of age myself, good game to you guys as well. And I think that, the nice thing maybe you can say about both of our teams here at this point is that as a team, complete team, neither team has played their best football yet. The best football is yet to be played, and that's where you want to be playing is your best football in December and January. Will we get there from Seattle's standpoint? I don't know. But is the trajectory certainly there for the Bills to get there? Yeah. If they can continue to match up and do like what they did today and play solidly, and Allen play as solidly as he did today. Really impressed by him. RSOs, should we sign Dan Quinn? I don't know if Dan Quinn's going to do a whole lot more for this defense than what Norton's doing. I'm not as certain that he would be a fix. The problems may just continue to be here no matter what new coordinator midseason you brought in. It's maybe the answer is really within it is to change the scheme and to move on from the 4-3 under defense that plays so heavy zone and is not built to be blitz heavy. But if you're just talking about shaking things up as those, just for shaking it up, knowing Norton's not the long-term answer anyway and he's going to be fired at one point or another as it is, I mean, I'm growing more and more at the point of it couldn't hurt. RSOs, wow, you're almost at 100 viewers. That's awesome to hear, and please do smash that like button if you're in here, and you Bills fans, please do hit the subscribe button. I know I'm a Seahawks fan. You're not going to want to hear Seahawks fans' thoughts all the times, but we're going to meet back up in the Super Bowl. You're going to want to know about what's going on here until we got to meet again. You're going to want to understand all the ins and outs. So please do hit that like button if you are in here. It does help the channel show up on the algorithm more often. No, Bills fans have not been the least bit toxic in this chat. They've been wonderful today, just like the Cardinals chat. Cardinals fans we got in a couple weeks ago. You guys have been awesome. So no, I wouldn't even come. I've been pleasantly surprised by you Bills fans. Mike, division rivalries can bring out the toxicity. It's the Niner fans that are the toughest ones. They're the hardest ones to deal with. The fact that we beat them, they didn't even dare come into the chat, but they tend to be the ones that you've got to get the mods on those guys. So. Derek says, well, I think Russell's going to get a massive stat boost in weeks 12 through 15, and I expect him to play well the next 2 weeks as well. I do as well. He still has a chance at the MVP, but he's going to need to play like the first 4 weeks of the year rather than the last 4 weeks. Hawks Nation, I can't tell if it's Ken Norton's game plan or if our corners just don't care. Probably a bit of both, Hawks Nation. I think today Dunbar's playing with the dodgy knee. I think that knee's going to require probably surgery at the end of the year / 4 to 8 weeks of rest to get it really sorted out. They didn't have Shaquille Griffin. They had to put him out there. They couldn't afford to put out the backup. So they got stuck there. As well as I think Ken Norton's game plan is not very innovative. It's really one that's being forced out of desperation right now because the front four can't generate any pressure at any point in time. So they're forcing them to blitz heavy now. That makes the defense look even worse. So it's a bit of one, bit of the other, I probably would say. Eagle fans are the most toxic? Maybe? I don't know. Tim M says, as a Bills fan, I have to say that you guys have a really good team. And as much as I wanted RD to show up and slow Russell down, I hated to watch him take the hits and punishment that he did today. Oh, thanks, Tim, man. That's so kind of you. And thanks for jumping on into the chat. I really love your guys. I like your guys' team too. There's teams I'm not just big fans off or whatever. Like I don't like the way the Ravens do it because they're operating from the standpoint right now with Lamar Jackson where they're not caring about the later part of his career. It's sort of like we'll get 4 years of him now in his current state, and then he'll have the hell beat out of him and it'll be done. I don't think the Bills are doing that with Allen. I like the way they built their team. Easy to root for Buffalo fans. Easy to root for that organization. And you guys got an exciting team too. I like how your team is put together and really well coached. So props to you guys too. Tip of the cap to you guys. You were the better team today, and maybe down the line we shall see each other again. You never know. It's a weird world. Jeremy Bones says, how did Carlos Dunlap do? Solid today, Jeremy. He gave you what you hoped to get. He also showed though why I wanted to get an additional pass rusher, why he was not enough, why I wanted 2 at the trade deadline. Carlos Dunlap and a Ryan Kerrigan. Carlos Dunlap and somebody else, not just him on his own. We need a little bit more than that. I sure hope they were back out on talking to Clay Matthews this week. Hey, Clay, what do you think, man? Really could use your help. I sure would feel a lot better about this team having Clay Matthews and Dunlap rushing from either edge as opposed to Dunlap and Rasheem Green or LJ Collier or somebody else. Arzo says we need more DK. We should literally go deep to DK at least once a drive. We may end up having to do that at one point or another if the defense keeps playing like they're playing as those. I think they targeted him okay for the most part today. But he certainly seems to be getting more and more efficient with his potential touches over there. So they tried to work him a little bit though. They did some stuff for him. RSO, Seattle always digs a hole that is too hard for us to climb out of. We did. We dug a pretty deep hole today, man. We put ourselves really behind the 8 ball. Team 12 says, do you agree that they should have Ken Norton in the first seat on the plane and have every single person slap him when they get on the plane? Sorry if you answered this already. I left for a bit. I would if I believed it was him, but again, some of this comes back to Coach Carroll, so it doesn't make it as easily attributable to just the defensive coordinator. Carroll has his fingers in these pies, folks, both on the offense and defensive side of the football. That's the way he rolls. Nas, I think our blitzing is nice, but I noticed on 3rd and 4th and long they were blitzing instead of just playing coverage. A little too much if you ask me. I agree. It just doesn't always is with a purpose, Nas, or with there's not enough of a, I think what you're talking about, just is throwing up the rhythm of it. You just keep throwing blitz after blitz after blitz, and that's when you get the offensive coordinator on the other side going, okay, how about a screen now then? You're going to blitz every single time, then you're getting a screen, and the screen will be hugely successful at that point. So you've got to be able to flip it up a little bit. They just got so in love with it and how they were having so much success with getting the quarterback at times, they just fell in love with it too much. TKBBG, he says, Bills. What's up, TK? Thank you for hopping on the chat. Team played good today. Derek says, I liked our blitz scheme on a lot of plays today, especially on those screen plays where Dunbar being closer to the line or better tackle would have made the play work great. Yeah, they blitzed a little too much for my pleasure, but I think they kind of have to. They're trying whatever they can. D-Boy, the whole live stream, I've only heard the bad. Can you talk about something we did good? It would really make me feel better. I feel like I'm being kicked in the face when I'm down. I'm sorry about that, D-Boy. Let's feel good about Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers played by far his best game here. He got tested a couple times, and he was right there on point, including on Stephon Diggs, I think, at one point deeper down the field. But he played a really good game. I thought he was really solid here. Jaron Reed, 2.5 sacks, reminiscent of that 10.5 sack year. I thought he was really good in this game, too. I thought he's been actually really solid this year, and he's been beat up a little on because he's been playing too many snaps. But I thought he played a really good game for us as well. Certainly DK continues his rise, D-Boy. Every week this guy shows up. Every week he's consistent. Every week he's giving us a big play. He's a game breaker for us over there. So he's another guy that I would definitely point to. There's not a lot to love other than that. DJ Dallas ran better for you, but there wasn't a lot of other stuff here to really love about where this game was at, unfortunately. Great to see Myers hit another field goal. We need him. We couldn't miss that kick at that moment. That part was good. So I'll try to think of a couple other things that were nice, but not a lot I like about this game, really. There's not a lot to really pick from that like. It is one of those ones you just got to take the kicks to the face a bit. Atirgia, I'm a Bills fan. But it seems like the Bills lost all respect for Seattle's running game and just sold out on blitzing and played a lot of man, and it seemed to work against Lockett and DK. Yeah, I would agree. I think they pinned their ears back and they went for it, Atirja. And Seattle couldn't really run the ball at that point. We were causing so many points by the Bills' offense. We were getting down by so many points. They needed to get up the field and get up the field quick. You just couldn't afford to wait or try to slowly move the ball up and drain clock. So that's part of what happens when you get down. It's an old football adage. You get down by a couple of scores, you start having to go away from that running game. You start have to go to the passing game. It's where the advantage goes to the team that got up on the other team at that point. But they did a good job in their strategy. They did a good job of getting on top of Seattle early and staying on top and keeping the pressure on throughout the game. Brian Roberts, how you doing? Jeremy Bone, yep, Jaron Reed did play a solid game. I knew what you meant on that, Atirja. And thanks for hopping on in as a Bills fan into the stream. Appreciate it. We've got a bunch of guys in here. Guys and girls, appreciate it. Steve Kahn, good game, Seattle. Best of luck going forward. Best of luck going forward to you too, Steve. I guess you're a Bills fan. Tip of the cap to you guys. Good game. Well played. Very well played. RSOs, our future schedule is the Rams, Cardinals, Eagles, Giants, Jets, football team, Rams, 49ers. We should finish off 7-1. I'd feel certainly really solid about, if we finish 7-1 as those, I'd feel solid about us as we go into the playoffs, and I certainly would feel like we had fixed at least a few things defensively. Maybe not everything, but it would be hard-pressed to see us go into 7-1 with our offense just on some stratospheric level of playing. So I'd feel pretty good if we land at that spot. That would be great. Great to see. Tim M says, you guys blitzed a lot today, but I don't think it was too much at all. With how many injuries and pieces have been moved around on our O-line, it makes a lot of sense to test them over and over. It's a fair point, Tim, and let me unpack this one just a little bit for you, because this has been something we've talked about here on the channel for a while as we've become one of the more blitz-heavy schemes in all the NFL. For about 9 years, Coach Carroll blitzed the least amount in the league. His teams blitzed the least amount in the league. He relied on the front four to generate pressure, play in and play out, and then he wanted to drop more guys into zones to get more hands on balls, squeeze down some of those windows for those quarterbacks, essentially generate some interceptions on tip balls and whatnot. That's how he wants to do it. That's the ideal. That's the fundamental way he's built this defense and scheme. And to that point, when he goes out and scouts the players that they bring into this scheme, he's going to scout players that fit well into a read and react zone-based defense. So now when you go diametrically 180 degrees in the opposite direction and now schematically flip that on its ear and become a blitz-heavy scheme, you don't necessarily have the players in place to adequately display those blitzes. So when you look at your Bills team, for instance, you see their players doing a good job of disguising pre-snap the blitzes and when they're coming. You don't know always when the guy's coming or where it's coming from. It's very hard to tell. This confused Russell a lot. Our defensive scheme doesn't do that. Our guys will blitz and the quarterback will know where it's coming from. You saw Josh Allen a couple times in this game recognize where it was coming from, call his protections, adjust, and then he had plenty of time to throw the football. This is the problem with trying to retrofit a blitz-heavy scheme into our 4-3 under read and react zone-based scheme. It's not in our DNA. It's not who we are. We're playing outside of ourselves to try to generate pass rush. And that's where it gets exposed. That's where we get beat up on. That's where teams start to score a whole bunch of points. That does kind of tend to be the problem for us, Tim. If we want to become a blitz-heavy scheme, I'm okay with it. Trust me, I'll be the first guy to say I'd much rather play defense going downhill than playing read and react going backwards. Absolutely. But now you have to draft for that. Now instead of going for zone corner coverage, you got to go for man-on-man guys. Now instead of getting linebackers that are better in zone than man-on-man, you got to go for more man-on-man guys, the guys that can lock guys up one-on-one. Same thing true with a strong safety. Just go down the line. We just don't have the dogs in place to run this type of scheme this way, in my opinion. Jamal Adams is really the only guy you have that's a natural good blitzer. Bobby's pretty good at it, but I think the Seahawks fans hype him up a little bit more than really what he is as a blitzing middle linebacker. Matthew James says, I think it was a bad overall game for the Seahawks. Outcoached, terrible blocking, which put Russell in a lot of pressure situations. Defense needs to be consistent with making stops. Agree with everything you said, Matthew. Agree with everything you said. Some of the terrible blocking, again, though, does come back to, Matthew, the pass protection. The pass protection comes back to coaching and play calling, but it also then will come back to Russell and his ability to call out those protections pre-snap to make sure he can stay clean for long enough to be able to make the hot route throw read that he needs to make. Derek, the Seahawks and Lightning fan. I'm hyped about my Gators winning yesterday. Kyle Trask looking good for a team that is just missing that quarterback. I'm talking to you, Indianapolis. They may look at him. It certainly looks like Rivers is kind of done at this point, doesn't it? He's looking a little bit finito. Jeffrey Thistle says, seems like they could use the short pass game with DK more and let him outrun people. Certainly could. I'd be open to giving him some more touches. That's for sure. I'm not going to be opposed to that. Space, the secondary needs to be addressed. It's the same game in and game out. Pop the hood and fix the problem. Yeah, if you can, I don't know if you can fix it at this point in time, Space. Not until this offseason, but it absolutely needs to be fixed this offseason, and they need to really go at it. Team 12s, it confuses me sometimes in this chat and Seahawks YouTube videos. I say we should sign Clay, and people are toxic and say he sucks. We don't need him. Why people got to live in their own little world. Team 12s, I get it. I get where you're coming from on that. The thing that I've come across, sorry, I got ambulance going on outside. The thing I've come across with this on this is that people don't like Clay's dirty shots on Russell Wilson through the years. And because the Packers and the Seahawks have played a lot over the years, there's been a lot of dirty shots. Even last year when he played with the Rams, he went upside his noggin a bit. So people are just opposed to it from that standpoint. I'm not, because we're desperate. And as they say, any port in a storm. That's one for you Buffalo folks. So, yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat. But I know there's a lot of fans of Team 12s that I don't get it either. D-Boy says, the Hawks Nest, are you an apple pie guy, a pumpkin pie guy, or sweet potato pie guy? I'm probably pumpkin pie guy, but I don't love pie. So I'm more sweet. Fruit and bread together doesn't always go well for me. It's not a magical combination. Derek Seahawks and Lightning fan, all I'm saying is we can go 8-0 down the stretch, and all we would need is for the winner of tonight's game to drop one more game and the Packers to drop one game, and we have the number 1 seed. If we do that, we have the number 1 seed. I'd say nothing of somebody else needing to lose. If you go through the rest of the schedule at that point like that, Derek, you will have it. You will have that number 1 seed. Brian Roberts, thoughts and concerns about the Rams game. Probably could be boiled down, Brian, to whether or not the Rams show up. The Rams' problem this year has not really been a talent deficiency, which I thought they might run into this year, being all the draft capital they've given up over recent years to go for it in the now, to try to get that Super Bowl here in the now. But they've actually been able to retain some decent pieces, have some young developing guys come along, and they've been pretty good. They seem to have a couple games where they don't quite show up, where they just will go through the motions, and for whatever reason, they just don't look ready to play. I don't think that'll be this week against us, a division rival that they always seem to play tough. I expect them to come out, and again, like this week, I would expect us to probably give up points out the board. I don't know what our offense will do out the gate, but I do expect our defense to struggle. Can they adjust through the game? Can they find a way to cause a couple turnovers like they weren't able to today? Which is a big part of this process for me, is that, okay, we're going to give up some points. Okay, we're going to give up some yards. Just have a couple times throughout the game where you can get a fumble or an interception and flip the field. Just give us a couple of those moments like they have actually throughout the year. Like the KJ Wright in the Vikings game when he climbed to the top of the tower and grabbed that pick. Like the game against the Cowboys where Shaquille Griffin gets the interception as he's covering Amari Cooper. So we've done it before, and we can do it again. So I'm a little concerned by it right now, Brian. I don't have a prediction quite yet for it. I need to see where the Rams' health is at. But I think it's going to be probably a close game. I do. I don't think it's going to be one we just necessarily get down by 14 points and it's like this one. We're all uphill all game. I think we'll get down by a little bit. I think the offense will hang in there. Emmett Brown, I think we all know what Snacks did during quarantine. Dude had daily mukbangs with Eddie Lacy. He looked thick, man. He looked real thick in those photos. He really did. He looked big right out the gate, and that's probably a little bit of why he's had to wait. But big part of it, too, is he's a big, fat one-tech that's not going to rush the passer in his best-case scenario. Do we need a big, fat one-tech right now? Is that what this defense is dying for? No, not really. Not really. Team 12s, remember when you used to do 7-hour streams? I don't think your vocal cords liked you too much. No, my vocal cords would kill me the next day for doing that. It was really brutal the next day. My brain was mush as well by the next day. So it's very hard to maintain that. I'm getting older now. I'm an older man now. It's hard to keep that pace up. Derek, the LOB not only had an elite pass rush, but the DBs were always way better zone hawkers than what we have now. True, Derek. Wilson's career is shaping up a lot like Aaron Rodgers, says Team 12s. Rodgers early in his career won a Super Bowl, had his prime, had a bad defense, insane offense, and the team might be my best chance to win after his prime. Could become that. That's certainly the trajectory it's a little bit on. The one thing that Wilson has above Rodgers, he's gotten to a second Super Bowl. Rodgers hasn't even gotten to a second Super Bowl yet. But they're very similar players. If you look at their passer rating, yards, their ability to throw for a lot of touchdowns, not always having a high volume passing attack that they're operating out of. Could be. Derek, the Seahawks fan. Derek says Saints are looking good early versus Tampa Bay. The Bucs are worryingly inconsistent. They are inconsistent, and the Saints are still a very solid team. They get forgotten about in the NFC, but that's a team with a great offensive line. They've been without Michael Thomas, their best wide receiver, for most of the year, and that defense is still holding it together pretty well. They could still be a pretty big problem come playoff time. I certainly wouldn't feel super uber confident against them. Emmett says we just need to lean on DK, Disley, Lockett, and running back dumpers. Rinse and repeat. Certainly embracing some of the short passing game would help against this blitz packages. It would. Falling a little bit away from expecting to throw deep shots down the field every time would help. And I would like to see a little more of that as well, Emmett. Derek says, I'm kind of feeling better about the next Arizona game because it's on a Thursday and the Cards play the Bills next week. I think if we are healthy, we will win. It's a good chance we could with that. With those dynamics at play, there's a decent little chance that you could. So, it'll be interesting. We'll be playing on a short week as well. We'll see how we come out of this Rams game. B. Russ, Jason Pierre-Paul just had the ball in his hands. If only he had 2 whole hands to catch it. Well, he's missing a couple fingers, man. A finger and a half or a finger and 3/4, something like that. All right, I'm out. Always real. Got to go grocery shopping. Love your channel, bro. Thank you very much. I think that is a good time. I have officially caught up with the chat. Oh. So I think I'm going to ask you guys to get in your last questions. I want to thank all the Bills fans for coming in here. You guys were just like the Cardinals fans a couple weeks ago, respectful. Hey, you guys are pumping your chest out. You should pump your chest out. You got a fantastic team. You guys got a great shot this year, as good a shot as anyone over there in the AFC. Just maintain some health. Hopefully you guys can get through there. I like Josh Allen and his trajectory. He's on pace to be one of those next great young quarterbacks in this league. It's a good thing to have. It's hard to find as you look at the Jets across from you, look at the Dolphins across from you. It's really tough to find that quarterback. So when you got it, it's good to have, and you can build everything else around him at that point. For my Seahawks fans out there, I just want to make sure, be worried. Don't panic. For the guys that are super positive, don't get too uber positive because there are some things we should be worried about. Find a good middle ground here and maintain that middle path throughout the week. We've got to watch a little bit more of this team. We've got too many things coming back in here, too many parts and pieces we're adding in, and we need to see how it all kind of smooths out and learns to work together. Jamal didn't have preseason. He didn't have training camp. He just arrived at this team right at the start of the season. It's going to take some time for things to kind of come together a little bit. Let's give it a little bit more time before we start slamming that panic button and saying we need to fire Pete Carroll and, oh my God, the season's over with. I do appreciate all of you being in here. T. Dobbs, thank you for your kind comment. Appreciate you hopping in. You guys are a great fan base, and you were awesome today coming in here. You helped keep this chat lively. I love your guys' positivity and your energy. Feel good about your team. You got a great team. Other than that, I feel good about where we're at. Feel good about where we're going in the future, guys. The year is ours. We've got it there in our hands. It's right there in our hands still. It's almost like a new season as we go forward. You're in first place. You control your destiny. The schedule's not too hard. Those are the type of things as you go into the season you'd love to have at this point in time in the season. Let's not get lost in the forest despite the trees. Let's realize our perspective and where we're at and what we have and what we can accomplish and get. So I love you guys. You were phenomenal and awesome as always. Nothing but the best. I've got the best chat, I think, on all the NFL chats, of all the chats anywhere on YouTube. You guys are fantastic. And despite